'Cause we live in the Matrix.
Maybe.
The Anything Podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Chris. How
And-
are you doing today?
It's October 27th today, correct?
It is. I just checked.
Of the
Even though I
year-
asked you five fucking minutes ago.
The year 2019, and Halloween has not occurred yet, but because Halloween, what is it, on a Thursday this year?
Yeah. Very
This was
strange.
Halloween weekend for everyone.
Yes. So, did you go out?
And this is the Anything Podcast. Here we go.
Yes. But did you go out?
I did go out.
What'd you do?
Well, let's start with Friday.
Friday was fun.
Friday was fun. We played a popular game called Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah, we've talked about that many times already
Yes.
so far.
It might be the best game humanity has ever invented.
Yes.
I think it is.
Absolutely.
I definitely think it is.
I need to come up with, I want to take my card ideas that I've written for our games and get them like actually made, which would be
should.
awesome.
The card that you wrote two cards that were questions that I did not know. Sometimes you could tell that they're written. You're like, oh, somebody wrote this. It doesn't blend in with the game. Mm-hmm. But you wrote two cards that we couldn't tell. I didn't know. And then I looked and it was handwritten. That was a great job.
Yeah.
Well,
all those, remember the text string like way back when where I just started listing all of these crazy different things for cards. That's all I was using.
Yeah.
So it's like we already
awesome.
did that from the group chat. But yeah, I mean, it was so much fun. And it was nice because it was intimate. So there was only a few of us.
Yep.
And that was actually really nice because normally it can get like a little crazy.
when there's too many people, you have to have 6, I think, is good.
Yeah.
12 is too many.
Yeah.
8 is pushing it. But if you're with people who are focused, you can do 8. Mm-hmm. But when you get to like the level 12,
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like, it'll start going into factions too. Like, so a few people will talk over here, a couple of people will talk over here, and then you might even have a third conversation over here. So it's like it doesn't work properly, and then it's like everybody just shut the fuck up so we can continue playing. Because sometimes you'll have a conversation here and a conversation here, and then there's a couple of people who are like, all right, let's get playing.
Yeah.
And it like goes around and all the time. But yeah, no, I mean, this one that we played was a lot of fun, even though it was just it was a smaller crowd, which was really nice.
Well, what I found awesome about it was our friend's friend. I forget what his name was. I know what his name was, but
I don't remember either.
To remain anonymous. So he was from Israel. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how long he's been in the U.S., but I try to put myself in his shoes. So if you think that you're in a foreign land with foreign people, I tried to wonder myself, like, what if I went to Russia or I went to Israel, right? Now he was very
Or anywhere, just Middle East.
Yeah.
You know, I go to Afghanistan or Pakistan or India, and
what I was impressed about people from Europe is that they learn English and they learn about our culture. So he knew probably more than I did about our own history, first of all.
Yeah.
But what was very interesting to me was I tried to put myself in his shoes, trying to convert American culture and American slang and the English language into something that he can relate to and play the game. And he did awesome at it. I don't know if I could do the same thing if I was in a foreign land playing a foreign game.
But you know, here's the crazy part though, because when he was reading the card, when he was the card czar, who kept getting the cards? And that was me.
Yeah.
And you know,
Like this, you two were like this.
oh yeah, I don't know what was going on there, but it was like, I want to say, I think every round that he was the card czar, I won the round, except for maybe like 1 or 2 times.
For sure.
And I think those went to you then. But yeah,
From now on, you identify as a Jewish man from Israel.
No, I identify as a pumpkin.
Okay.
Oh, speaking of that, so side note before we get back into our cards game, Aaron, you texted me earlier. It was quite a number of pumpkins, like 4 some pumpkins, and then there's a basketball sitting in there, and it says in like black Sharpie, it says, "I identify as a pumpkin." And I threw that up on Facebook because you don't have it. And oh my God, people are like cracking up all over the place, which is awesome.
I saw one that was a blue car that had a white door panel. Mm-hmm. And the white door panel says, "I identify as a blue panel."
Oh yeah,
that was funny too.
I've seen things like that all the time as well too.
Or you sent me the bicycle one. It's a guy on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And he says, I identify as a bicyclist, so I'm winning. That's the funniest thing. That's the best, because that's what we live in. It's a good transition
But
to.
no, we got to go back to our game. So yeah, going back to it, it's like, we always say know your audience. And we always bring new people in to kind of test if they are good to be part of our group. And, we've addressed that we've had people in our group that we thought were good and then, or that we could help.
Sorry. It's my phone.
All right. Yeah. But yeah, as long as we have the ability to, bring in new people, we always say, know your audience. So like, I know you, I know our other friends that we play. And so you can kind of tell, but when you have new people coming in, it's like, all right, well, how far can you go? Because some of the cards, and yes, he's Jewish. So some of the cards in there are, they're Jewish. They'll have Jewish things on it, which is kind of, go ahead.
I found out after the fact, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I found out after the fact that he is like straight up practicing Jewish. Like there is people who are Jewish. I'm Catholic. I'm a non-practicing Catholic, but I grew up.
Non-practicing.
Yeah. But he is a practicing Jewish person who observes all of the Jewish things.
So is he practicing Jewish or Jewish Orthodox more, would you say? Because like Ben Shapiro is like an Orthodox Jew.
I know that he observes all of the holidays and traditions, whereas I, as a Catholic, not only have I stopped doing that even when I was supposed to, and I thought that's what you were supposed to do, I still didn't, because I didn't. Now I am so far away from the idea of organized religion because that's my own philosophy. But for him,
I mean, a lot of people are like that.
Yeah. But for him, apparently, and we don't know him well. We just met him. Apparently, he still observes. So when you have these cards that are potentially offensive, you don't know what is offensive to that person.
Yeah, but see, okay, let's go with this whole thing. Okay, Cards Against Humanity is made to be offensive
for sure,
and it's always a one up on how the black card and the white cards can go together and kind of one up on each other. So you go into the game knowing it's going to be offensive. And I don't think I've ever played the game with any single person that actually got truly heartfelt offended by a card or by somebody putting something down. Yep. Most people laugh. And yes, even if it's against Catholicism or against Judaism or against women or against men or against white or black or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It was always looked at as funny. So like, what was the one card that we put that he had, and it was something about God sent down a plague of blank. Do you remember the exact card itself?
No.
Okay, well, the black card went like, and Moses said unto thee, and God sent a raining black plague of blank. Yeah. Or it was very similar to that. I don't exactly remember. And so we all put down, and this was his card, that he was the card czar. And again, he's Jewish. So I threw the Nazi card down.
Yeah, which is, you don't know. Like, that could be because he's Jewish.
Yeah. And I'm like, I mean, because if you think about it, it was hilarious just because of the difference between the two. But it's like, I mean, just like the whole history of how, if you even go like how the Jewish people were in Egypt and then had to escape there, and the whole 10 plague thing. And then, I mean, just very recently, you had the Nazis, but it was just this wild play, and it was like you could take it like 4 different ways, and I'm thinking of all these things in my head and how it could be. And it was like last time when we were talking about like the grave sites and the plots, the grave plots, and how people were doing that. So it was like all these things just start circling in my mind, and it's like, well, what do you do with that? And then so yeah, and
Well,
it's
what
like
card did he throw?
no, he was the card czar.
Oh, he was the czar. That's right.
So he was the one who was reading it and ended up like taking that, or was it our other?
Well, he threw one that was making fun of himself. Like that's the funny thing that I found is that whenever I think something's going to be offensive to someone, like oh maybe I shouldn't throw this down because of their religion or race or whatever, then they always throw something that is more offensive, making fun of themselves. Like oh this is hilarious, and that I think in society we have to be able to make fun of each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And I think we also need to start playing more Cards Against Humanity.
We definitely do.
So I think we really need to do that.
I'm definitely down.
I think anybody who else that listens needs to start playing Cards Against Humanity.
Yep.
And if you here's the challenge. If you see somebody on the other side of that line and they're wearing a MAGA hat or they're wearing a I identify as whatever hat, and you don't agree with them, ask them to play Cards Against Humanity. Sit down, have some fun, and say, look, this game is supposed to be offensive. Everybody's going to they're just offensive cards.
Yep.
Let's just play, have some fun, shoot the shit, and maybe at the end of it, we won't kill each other and have a little bit of fun and kind of put everything back into perspective.
That's the thing that I realized also. I don't know where our friend is meeting these foreign people. I think on foreigndate.com. Really,
is that even like a real thing? But yes, no, that is true. That's very, very true.
Yeah, like where are you meeting these foreign dudes? Dudes, all day dudes. I guess if you're all day dudes, there's going to be you got to have some foreign dudes in there. But yes, there was another person whose country of origin was not the United States before. And same thing with him. Whenever I thought something might be offensive to this person who I don't know, then he would throw something that was just making fun of himself even more.
Why are you judging that person?
It's exactly it. Well, because of race or religion.
No, I get it. I get it. No, trust me, I get it. Because that's the whole thing. Like when he came over and we were talking and it came up. I mean, first of all, you could tell he was Jewish, just and straight from there because he had the accent.
Yeah,
and then it came up. But yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, why do we get weird around that type of just like words in a game and that? It's like, why do we get weird about that? Yeah, I understand like the history of things, and I understand that, but you know what? It's also that we're not in that time. And as long as we remember and respect what happened and learn from it, you're going to kind of step away. And it's like we're all on one, we're all on one level plane then at that point.
Well, that's what I'm learning from our friend who's bringing all of her foreign date dudes over. And also, being in, with having a little bit older, having a little bit of exposure towards people from foreign cultures. There was a young lady who worked at my work from Germany, and I was very impressed that she spoke like 7 different languages and just her outlook. I did sit next to a woman from Israel at my work who taught me a lot of things. And we're all humans, and what I was thinking about the other day is that because of the internet, more so than ever, we're a global society now, whether we like it or not. And the separation of people where, this person's ideologies is this or they're that and they're them. That's them over there and we have to be against them. Yeah, we're global now. And I think we have to we're all human beings.
To a point, though. Yeah. Not necessarily entirely, because there are traditions and a lot of things that are done that are different throughout the world. So like, Chinese culture and different Asian culture, same thing with Middle Eastern culture, African culture, South American culture. And then you get all into the tiny factions, and a lot of different people are isolated, physically by mountain ranges or lakes or waterways or oceans or whatever it might be. So there's separation that way, but in terms of the physical world, but in terms of, technology, we can all be united that way. So yes, it is a global society, but there are different things that we need to realize too, is that certain people have centuries or millennia long traditions that are not going to necessarily change overnight because of this technology that now can unite us or at least bring us close together,
Right.
where I could pull up my phone and FaceTime with somebody on the opposite side of the world, or have a group of people, or they can listen to this podcast anywhere in the world if they have a VPN, because I'm sure certain places were probably banned in. But I digress with that. But that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, we need to break away from this offensive culture and realize that, you know, if you're embracing other culture, like if I go to China and I'm wearing a dress of theirs, they look at that as a sign of respect, and they look at that as a something that they're proud of, because, you know, it's their culture and they take pride in their culture. So when you have an outsider or a foreign person coming in and kind of embracing that, they're very open and welcoming. And yet then if that you have that picture that comes back from the Facebook or Instagram world, you could get like ostracized and kind of like cut out, and it's like, no, that's you're on the complete opposite side of it. Like you're taking it so far out, because they're like, oh, that's culture appropriation. You're appropriating that culture. You're trying to make fun of that. No, I'm actually trying to learn. You got your head so far up your ass
Right.
that when you stick your tongue out, you're licking your Adam's apple.
Right. I agree.
Like, what the fuck?
Well, and that's where I have to give our foreign guest real credit, because coming from, he is, again, it's a practicing Jewish religion, right? So coming in around people who are, a different religion is his, and then playing Cards Against Humanity, which just blasts every religion. And then the very first card was a mason jar in the anus, right? Well,
which I put down.
Right. Well, it was great because, first of all, that can be offensive if you're a person of a different culture. I'm like, what? The first thing we're talking about is putting a jar in someone's ass. He didn't know what an anus was, so he had to,
But once you figure it out, he was laughing his ass off.
That's the whole, where I give him so much credit, because he could have just been like, these crazy Americans, I'm super offended, but he played the whole game. He wasn't offended, and he didn't look down on us because we have different views of our culture.
See, here's the only other thing is, I don't want to make, I mean, I'm not trying to make a big deal of this in any way, shape, or form. There's no reason to. He's been in America for a while, so he's assimilated into the culture, has, you know, there's, like, if you just got off the boat, or you just got off the plane, or however you just got here, that's one thing, because you're going to be in a culture shock no matter where you go. If you're American, you go to Pakistan, you're going to be in a culture shock. If you go from India to Canada, you're going to be in for a culture shock. It's just they're just all different areas. Like I said, it's because all these traditions and how things are done and how people are respected, or how, whatever it might be, everything's different. So he's been here long enough that he's going to understand. So, you know, it's not that, I don't think that it's that big of a deal, him coming here and him playing a game that can be offensive to anybody, because, you know, that's not really the takeaway. The takeaway is that no matter where you are, you can, if you can look at something that, you know, might partially define who you are, like your religion or your race or your identity, or, you know, all of these things make up who you are. They don't define you, but they make up who you are. So if he can come in, or anybody can come in and play a game that, you know, just makes fun of everything, again, on a level playing field, and you know that, you know, again, like I said, every time I've played that game with anybody I played it with, no matter who it was, I have never had one person that got offended in any way, shape, or form. Most people laugh at it, and it's the cards that get laid down that could be talking about that person that finds it the most funny.
Yep, that's exactly it.
And the nice thing about that is if you can laugh at yourself or if you can laugh at something like that and realize that, dude, it's just a joke.
Yep.
And we're just having fun. And, we're stepping outside the norm and the social norm and the reality. And we're just sitting down. We're having fun. We're playing a game. We're enjoying each other's company. We get into I don't know about other groups that may play that game, but like our group, we'll get into some crazy in-depth conversations, i.e. bore the Anything podcast because of some of the conversations that we had.
Yep, sure
you
did.
had that idea and said, I want to sit down and kind of talk about things.
Yep.
And we ran with it. But yeah, we sit down and we still talk about all this crazy stuff while we're playing. And it's just funny because, there's a lot of things in that game that's just history in there, like Genghis Khan.
Yep.
What was that one that we were talking about?
Well, there was Bill Burr. We talked about Bill Burr.
No, I'm talking about a card,
Yeah.
the cards.
There
wasn't a Bill Burr card.
I know, it's Aaron Burr.
Aaron Burr, yes. So Aaron Burr was in that. That's history. There's all of these historical things. So if you don't know what the card is, you have to look it up, and it's actually teaching you some things.
I sure
too.
did. I didn't know what the color puce was.
Yeah.
And also, I could tell. I'm just going out on a limb here, but I'm assuming the creators of that game or someone involved in it who is writing the things, they are college educated, because the things in the
Ancient Athenian boy.
well, they must be educated on that. Like, I know, man. In fact, that's the only one that I'm offended by. I am offended. But there's a lot of those cards, like the Invisible Hand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the Invisible Hand is? Okay.
Are you talking about the thing where, like, if you
The card, the Invisible Hand. But do you know what the
Oh,
term...
no, I thought you were talking about, like, that thing where, like, you put up this mirror and you put up this wall and you put a fake hand cloaked.
That's interesting.
And then you put your other hand, your hand on the other side, and your hand's over here, and you lay it. And as they're stroking both your hand and the mannequin hand, and then they take a hammer and smash the mannequin hand, and a lot of people pull away like it's actually theirs because they imprint that mannequin hand is actually yours, and it's just to show how malleable the brain actually is.
Mm-hmm. No, the card, the Invisible Hand.
No, are you in Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah, but the term, when I say to you the term Invisible Hand, do you know what I'm referring to? Or another one that I didn't know was the 3/5 compromise.
Oh, no, I knew that one because of history.
I didn't know.
But no, when you're talking about the glass hand, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So the Invisible Hand,
Or Invisible Hand.
the 3/5 compromise, Aaron Burr. When I ordered one of the expansion packs, the college pack ironically was the college pack, but when they sent it in the mail, it came with a poster that you learn about art in college. Like if you have to take art history, it came with one of the paintings that you learn about in art history, right? So I'm like, oh, these people, they know what they're talking about. They're educated. So what the Invisible Hand is, it's the force that regulates the market. It's the reason why.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know what you're
all
talking about.
water bottles generally cost the same amount. It's the force that keeps prices relatively constant.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
across economies. So I'm like, oh, the Invisible Hand. I didn't know what that was. The 3/5 compromise, I was so excited to learn about in school.
Until you actually
Until
learned
I found
it.
out
And you're
what
like,
I was.
That's not what
pretty
it really
sad.
should have been,
Yeah,
because
it's pretty-
people shouldn't count
Yeah.
as half of a person
Yeah.
or a fraction of a
Or
person.
3/5 of a vote. I didn't.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's
oh.
that's. I mean, I can understand like a child counting as half of a person. Like you're like, how many people are in your household? 2.5.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you have a parent, two parents, and a child, so they're half of a person because they're little.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like that game's fun. So I'm so happy that we played that
Me
game
too.
yet again, and I am going. I didn't tell anybody else this, but I'm ordering the Friends pack.
Oh, come on. I'm going to order one too. I was going to order one. I'll order the other one. There's a new one out. Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
'Cause
Well, I'm glad
couldn't
that I
order
said
it on my
I'm
phone.
glad that I said that because I'm ordering the Friends pack.
Okay.
And
I'm going to look to see what I was going to order one too, but it won't let, for some reason I have to do it from a computer. It won't let me order it from the phone.
on Amazon or on
No, off the website. Off
Cards
yeah.
Against Humanity. Why don't you just check Amazon and then get it one day shipped?
Okay.
But yeah, no, there's some crazy stuff with that game. It's awesome.
It's awesome.
Here's the thing. If you get offended, whoever you get offended by, sit down with them, ask them to play Cards Against Humanity, and say, look, let's have a little chat. Let's have some fun.
Yep.
Let's put the bullshit aside and let's have some fun. And that's all that matters. If we do that, it's going to be great because then on the other side, you could be like, dude, I had a lot of fun. We had a good conversation. And that's really what matters. And
now, do you see this on the website? Download and make your own cards for free. You could go
no,
on
I haven't
the
gone on the website. I'm not going on the website right now because otherwise we'd probably get distracted and be on our phones and everybody would be like,
I'm only checking one thing. So, now, before we play Cards Against Humanity, when there's a new person who's never played it before, I always ask them, do you have delicate sensibilities? Are you offended? And they always say no. And I go, well, what about butt sex? Are you offended by butt sex? No. Like, I'll pick something.
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing. A lot of the cards are about butt sex. Right. Like, there's just a lot of shit in there. And yeah, it's
there
great.
There is a lot of shit in there.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like if you establish that butt sex is or butt stuff is okay, you're gonna have a pretty good game.
Yep. Well, we have a friend who doesn't like butt stuff. But she still
is the one who originally asked everybody to play the damn game.
Yep. This is the one I'll be buying.
Okay. So how many cards are in that?
300.
Oh, so we got a hell of a good
yeah. So this will be our Christmas.
Okay. So side note yet again from the stuff. We have the original game, the green box, the red box, the blue box, the weed pack, the period pack, the college pack, the bigger blacker box pack, which have some cards in them, but they're mostly blank cards, which we've filled up. We have this sci-fi pack.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think we may have the 80s pack?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have the 80s pack. And I believe those are all the packs we have. So we have a shit ton of cards. And each time we bought an expansion pack, like the smaller packs, not the green pack or the red pack or any of that, but the smaller packs that have 20 cards in them, we would play them. We would play all those cards first. So we would put the black cards up first, and then those are the cards that we'd all choose from in terms of for the white cards. So we'd all play all those cards. But what was crazy is there were a couple of cards that we played this past Friday, and we played, I don't even know how many times.
A lot.
But they still pop up new cards.
Yep,
and it's like, wait, I don't remember that card whatsoever.
No, Puce. I never saw the Puce card before.
No, I've seen that. Yeah,
there was a couple of them that I'm like, what the hell was that? Most things I know what they are, but I had to look up. There was something I had to look up, but most things I knew what they were. I had to look up.
I'm actually surprised you didn't know what Puce was.
No.
Puce, I mean, they actually have a crayon.
Yeah.
They have a crayon Puce.
Sounds gross.
No, it's not. I mean, it sounds kind of like pubic hair, but it sounds, you know what it actually sounds like? It sounds like pubic hair and lice mix. So it's like you get fucking crabs.
Yeah.
Here's, so it should actually be kind of like a red or like.
Yeah. Oh, what happened? He got puce. That's a new disease, puce.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Oh, man, he got puce.
All right,
pubic hair and lice. Oh. All
right, so we talked about the game, which actually a fun little story. We do anything on the Anything podcast. We talk about anything, so who gives a shit?
Well, here's what I want to talk about since we're on the thing with game.
But we're actually talking about getting a Cards Against Humanity game played and recording it and
don't tell everyone our idea.
Playing it.
Steal our idea.
Dude, it's all over YouTube already.
You heard it here first, folks.
It's already they already do that on YouTube.
No, they don't.
Yeah, you can watch Cards Against Humanity games on YouTube.
What?
Yeah,
I thought we were pioneers.
You can also play. You can also play online against people too.
Well, I'm going to do that at work.
Yeah,
when I should be working.
I don't know. I mean, I think you have to kind of like be involved in the game somewhat, but. Yeah, I mean,
I work in a secure building, so I can't do it anyway.
All right, so when I first met her and we hung out a couple of times outside outside there.
Mm-hmm. You met on foreign date, right?
No. Oh. No, because I'm domestic.
Okay.
And but no, we were hanging out and we had on the TV in the room in the Red Rebel room that we play. It had Cards Against Humanity on there, and like you can make up your own cards too. And there's like cards that are like a normal card would be like that worth of text. It was like that much worth of text, which is like 6 times the amount of a card, and it's insane. So it's like you're reading through, and it's like, huh?
Yeah.
So, I mean, some of it's funny, but yeah, you could go on YouTube and check some of the stuff out. So we're going to have that. We're just kind of preparing it.
Yeah.
But you got to remember too, like this is 1027. Mm-hmm. We have, I think, like 7 or 8 podcasts that are already like ready to go that haven't been uploaded yet. So we got a couple of months, like a little bit of time. We're probably going to be around the Christmas time when this podcast actually goes out there. So we might actually have our Cards Against Humanity stuff already up there.
Yeah, that might be cool. Growing up, I had a couple. God,
you're totally shifting
No,
things.
definitely not. We're still in the realm of playing games. So here's the thing.
Okay.
We used to do family game night with all my friends. I had we've talked about this before. I had a core group of friends that I spent most of my 20s with. And you know, they always laughed at me like I had a second life, which I kind of did because I had my core group of friends who were all, you know, they were all involved with each other's lives. We all did everything together. But then I would always be on what I like to refer to as the lunatic fringe, where I would go out and meet other people and expand my horizons. I had my different sets of people.
Because you don't want to live in this little tiny dome
that a
lot of people like to live in.
They were and they're still in that bubble. I left the bubble, but that bubble still exists. They're still there. They're still going to the family game nights.
I just want to take a needle and go pop through those bubbles. Because like these people, I mean, to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, like one of my jobs that I had way back when, I would go sit down and talk with people. It was more about energy efficiency, their house, but you kind of like talk to people and like know them. Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, and then the other thing is traveling. So one of my businesses that I have is dealing with traveling. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk to people, they'll be like, oh, I haven't left this area or this block or literally this like 5 square mile area. And it's like, really? Like, so we're in Buffalo. Some people, Kenmore, for those who don't know, is north of Buffalo, and it's a square mile village, which is in the town of Tonawanda. Mm-hmm. And it's just this little area. And people in Kenmore, and people all over this area, but Kenmore is I think, like the biggest thing, because it's like people who grew up in Kenmore, grow up there, live there, move down the street from their parents because it's a square mile.
Yeah, or next door.
And continue to live there. And it's generation after generation after generation. And it's like, so like every single person knows every single person in Kenmore. Mm-hmm. And it's insane because I'll talk to people and they'll be like, yeah, I've never really traveled. I mean, like the furthest I'll go is like East Aurora. And that's south of Buffalo by like 20 minutes. Yeah. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. Get the fuck out there and see what's out in the world. Mm-hmm. the problem, and that's one of the big problems too, is you're in this bubble, you're in this echo chamber, you only know what you know, but that's the whole thing. Like there's so much else out there. It humbles you up to go out there. So when you go and travel outside your little bubble, you start seeing other people's opinions, other people's viewpoints. You see
way of life,
what people are, how they're living, all these different things. And it's like, go out, do something else,
right.
Please.
Well, it's funny you mentioned this because this particular couple that I was going to bring up, the friend of mine, that's his story. Parents, grew up, moved from one town over, still in the same area, never traveled anywhere. This friend of mine moved to our town in 8th grade, but moved from one town over, had never been anywhere else until he went on a cruise. When he went on a cruise, that was the first time that he'd been out of this tiny little, but that's just a cruise, right? So then in our 20s, when we went camping to our campsite, which is probably about an hour and a half away at most, that's the farthest away from his hometown he had ever been, besides being on this cruise, right? So know nothing about any type of other cultures except for what you see, but you've never experienced being anywhere. Well, then when we would play these games in our 20s, for some reason, they decided that him and finally his wife, when they got married, they would cheat at these games. Like we used to play a lot of the game of Risk. We'd play just any kind of card game because we'd have family game night. Uno. Games like just any game.
So like actual family games.
Yeah, apples to apples, So, but they would cheat. Or we used to play a lot of Texas Hold'em because back in the early 2000s, Texas Hold'em was becoming big. But they would cheat. Now, Hold'em, I get it. You're gambling for money, kind of against your friends. Or you're gambling, fake chips. It's fake money. But when we're playing the game of Risk, and for those of you who are not familiar with the game of Risk, it's an old game. That. Well, a lot of people don't. You have to put out your pieces, and it's a dice game that you fight with each other.
Essentially, it's just a world domination game.
It's the game of global domination. So when we would put out our pieces, you get a certain number of pieces to start. Well, I find that this guy is putting out more pieces than you're allowed to have at the beginning of the game, automatically giving him an advantage. Now, first of all, we're there to have fun with our friends. And you're playing a game to have fun and you're playing to win, but it's amongst your friends. Why would you cheat to win? You're defeating the whole purpose of playing the game. And I never understood why they felt the need to cheat to win against their friends. Like, we're all friends. I never get it. And they cheated at everything.
Well, that's the whole thing. There's some people that competition is everything and they have to win.
Yeah.
Like my ex-girlfriend, it was very competitive over things. So like we would go over to her cousin's house and do like a couple of different game things as well too. Like you hold the card up to
those are fun.
Up to your head and you got to guess it by what they're saying or what they're doing.
You're Genghis Khan.
And I mean, it's fun, but it's like if you get so competitive and something happens where like they don't you're just not on that proper wavelength, and it's like, holy crap, chill the fuck out. We're just here to have some fun.
Well, that's the whole thing. And even if you are super competitive, I grew up playing sports competitively, and of course I want to win. But when you're cheating, you're not winning. You didn't win.
Oh, no.
You cheated. You didn't win.
There's a little asterisk that goes next to your name there.
You're hitting yourself. It's like, do you ever see the meme where they have the guy on the bicycle and he takes the stick and shoves it in his own thing and falls? It's like, that's what you're doing. That's you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hilarious. I never, and they're probably still cheating. But the really sad thing was my good friend who was a woman. She had integrity and would never lie or cheat or anything until she got married to him. And eventually she started cheating with him. They're like, he was always a cheater and always a scammer and always shady. And, like it was like a subtle subconscious.
Hello, thank you for coming to game night. Yeah. Please state your name. I need a Amazon gift card, please.
Yeah, I was so sad that when I caught both of them cheating, I'm like, she would never. I can't believe you're cheating along with him. And it defeats the whole purpose. So shame on you, cheaters. I had to.
All right. Well, we got way off topic because we were talking about our weekend and family game night.
Oh, yeah.
Of the fun stuff.
Yep, so that was Friday.
Let's go to Saturday.
All right.
So you went out Saturday, right?
Sure did.
All right. What'd you do?
I was a designated driver.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Smart move.
Yep.
Actually, very unfortunate story. A friend of mine, I was texting her this morning because trying to figure out what we're going to do next week for my birthday. So I was asking her if she went to this place or not. And she's like, hey, do you remember this person? And I said, yeah, because I went to school with him. And she's like, yeah, he got hit by a drunk driver and killed last night.
Oh, no.
I'm like, holy fuck.
Womp womp.
Like, I knew him, and then the girl that he was with, so it was 2 people that got killed last
both.
night. Yeah.
This was last night? Mm-hmm. Oh,
So it was actually technically early this morning. It was like 2:30 in the morning. So it was anybody who knows me knows I'm very much against drinking and driving. Yeah. Very much against it. Mm-hmm. So I have part of my YouTube channel is Real Rideshare Stories, and I did a week-long campaign event called Always Drive Sober. And I've been actually contemplating doing another thing, kind of extending that, and it's going to be called the hashtag Always Drive Sober. Hashtag Always Drive Sober. Something like whatever the word is. But what I want to do is get it to the point where maybe it becomes a 501c nonprofit where it's going to be something like MAD or SAD or something against drinking and driving, but always driving sober and always continuing to do that because it just, 100% preventable. I know too many people who were hit by drunk drivers, killed by drunk drivers. My family has been through it where my cousin got hit, her car got split in half.
I got hit by a drunk driver.
Yeah, luckily you didn't. Luckily nothing bad happened.
Nope.
But
driving kids in the car, it might have been 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, in February when it's snowing out, and
but that doesn't.
Like drunk driving, kids are out in the car. Now this was when I was 19.
Yeah, but
drunk driving kids in the car hit someone in the other lane, ruined my first car that I ever had.
Yeah, and my cousin, it was 9 a.m. when this happened. And split the car in half. Her baby, which was 7 months old at the time, passed away due to traumatic injuries. My ex-girlfriend's nephew passed away by getting hit by a drunk driver on this time. It was this time last year. He's 14 years old. It was 12 in the afternoon when it happened. This one time frame was a little bit different because it's 2:30 in the morning, but still, it's 2:30 in the morning. I mean, with Uber and Lyft out there and taxi cabs or phoning a friend or whatever it might be.
Well, that's my comment. In this day and age, there is no reason to drink and drive at all. There's none. It doesn't matter. In fact, so I'm glad we're talking about this. Saturday night, I was the designated driver for our friend.
Yay!
Which I've done for a couple years now, and I always did that. I've been sober.
Well, you've been a designated driver for a long time. Yeah. But that's awesome.
Yeah. And even in my 20s, I always told people, I don't care if it's 3:72 in the morning, I know that's not a real number, I'm aware of that, but I told them, call me anytime, I will come and pick you up. And I did. And I was there for people. I'd come pick them up from the bar, I'd drive them around. And I still drank back then, but even after I got sober, then everyone...
Well, hold on. When you say you got sober, did you ever have a problem with alcohol? Or is it just a choice that you said, I don't really need it?
Is being in your 20s and drinking a problem?
No.
Like you could say, okay, I was in my 20s, but...
yeah, but here's the thing. Did you say, oh, I need to have a drink, or you were addicted in any way?
I did not have the definition of alcoholism, which is, it depends on what your definition of alcoholism is, but has being in that lifestyle negatively affected my life for sure. Okay. And just because I wasn't the definition of an alcoholic, when I was out drinking, there's just negative things that happened that had I been sober.
So you were an asshole when you were drunk, weren't you?
No, moreover, I was in situations where there was assholes around me, and I didn't have the wherewithal or common sense to not be in those situations. And you're in your 20s, you know? So, plus what really did it for me though, in all honesty, was because I grew up playing sports and my body was a finely tuned machine for a while when I was a kid. Once you start ruining your body in your, early 20s out partying all the time, alcohol is a poison, no matter how you look at it. It's very popular in society. There's advertisements for it. But if you really think of what it actually is, it is a poison. So you're slowly poisoning yourself when you're drinking. Now, for me, I was sick of the poison hangover. So I remember waking up and just thinking like, oh God, anyone who's been hungover, you feel like horrible. I just didn't ever want to feel like that again. And I wanted to get back to where my body was a finely tuned machine. So the thrill was gone. It wasn't as fun as it was in my early 20s, when you're going out and being a weekend warrior. But at this day and age, there's no reason to drink and drive. So now that even before I was sober, I would drive people around on the times that I wasn't drinking. I would always be there for people. And that's kind of what opened the door for me to being the designated driver. I wanted people to get home safe. People have died from drinking and driving that I knew. So now that I got really sober when I was 27, about 28 is when I really started. And it took me about till I was probably 29 to be like 100% sober, to where I didn't even have to feel obligated to drink when I went out to a bar. Then in my 30s, it was just normal for me to be in an environment where people were drinking and not even feel the obligation like I should be drinking too. That's a skill that's how most people end up drinking, I think, is that not only do they, even if they don't have the urge to drink themselves, which is alcoholism, they feel obligated when they go out in a social situation that other people will notice that they're not drinking and try to force alcohol on them, which does not happen, by the way, for anyone.
No, sometimes it does. Sometimes it's gonna.
Yeah.
Because some people are gonna be like, oh, why aren't you having a drink or something? And
for about 10 seconds.
It's happened. Actually, it's happened to our family game night. And that's why that person also is probably not in our group, because trying to instigate certain things.
All right.
Because it's like, oh, why don't you drink? And it's like, well, because one, I'm driving and I'm not going to drink because of that. And I don't have to have a good time. Right. And the thing is, I think it's a stereotypical thing for a person to do that, that says, oh, you need to drink, or why aren't you drinking, or something like that. Yeah, for the most part, people are going to respect that, especially if they know you and know who you are. Right. But it's the people who don't know you or don't have respect for either you or themselves who are going to pull that shit.
Nobody, for my experience, I had a friend who was taking he chose to take a medication to try to get rid of his adult acne, which I didn't think was bad anyway, but he, some people, they're very self-conscious. I understand.
Yeah. So for some reason, some people do that. I don't know really why.
Yeah, I get it.
But that's the whole thing. It's like, well, I know you've said, like you and I have talked about things, and you're like, well, I don't understand why you'd do that or change that or want, but it's like, well, because one, you're not walking in my shoes, so you don't know what's going on. Right. You only see what you see from your perspective on a short time, but you're not knowing what I'm doing or something like that.
And he got that awareness in his head that his acne was worse than it actually was. And we're always thinking, oh my God, this is horrible. If these people they're only looking at my acne. I think that's what he felt. So he started taking an acne reducing drug that you couldn't drink alcohol on it. And he was taking it for a long time. And when he first started, he said, oh, this is going to be very difficult for me. When I'm at the bar, they're going to know that I'm not drinking. I'm like, what? And I had experienced this myself, because when I was, when I had first made the conscious decision to stop drinking, I was not only worried about myself missing out, you had fear of missing out when I was drinking, like I'm not going to have as much fun as everyone else. But I also thought that everyone else was going to like point and laugh at me or something if I wasn't drinking. So when we were in our 30s and my friend had to take this medication, he said, well, I'm really, worried I'm not going to be able to go out to bars. I go, well, why? What do you mean? And he goes, well, they're all going to know that I'm not drinking. I'm like, You mean, and I knew what he meant. But I go, you mean the bartender or people around you? He goes, well, everybody. I'm like, look, man. I'm like, first of all, most people only care about themselves and they only care about their own drinks. Nobody's going to be looking at you. I'm like, second of all, if you really are concerned about it, then order a Coke. Nobody's going to know that, or whatever brand of soda. No one's going to know that there's no alcohol in that. And if anyone does say something, like, it's not nearly as bad as you think it's going to be. Nobody's going to force alcohol down your throat. No. But it does happen. I get what you're saying, where people will be like, oh, come on, just have one. Or that happened to maybe twice in my entire sober
The thing is, though, you can't say it doesn't happen, because it will. But again, it's the people who, one, don't know you or don't respect you or themselves. So
it's never going to get to
those
the
are
point.
people you just don't want to be around.
Right.
But one of the when you said that, it kind of raises this crazy thing. Like, you think that somebody is going to, you get all worried for whatever reason, whether it's because you don't have an alcoholic drink in your hand at a bar, or you want to, share a movie that you saw and you thought it was really good, but it doesn't really go status quo with something. Or I mean, anything. Or even if you want to start a business and you're like, I worry about all what other people think. And it's like, get the fuck past it, because nobody cares. Like, nobody is going to think about you at all, because everybody's thinking about themselves.
They really do.
Just like you're thinking about you, thinking about other people thinking about you. Nobody's doing that. Nobody cares about you. Like, if you weren't here, they would get on with their life. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter. And I'm not trying to sound like an asshole or anything.
That's where you have to be very careful. Like, nothing against you, but nobody gives a shit about you.
Don't worry about it. Just go out and do what you want to do and be who you want to be. And that's why people put up all these walls and these barriers and then put on fake facades and all this bullshit. And then, they actually become that person. And there's a point where it just becomes like you're standing on this house of cards that all of a sudden the cards now fall out from under you, and who the fuck are you really? You don't know.
You don't know.
And so it's like, you just need to figure it out and just be true to yourself, and fuck whoever has a problem with it. Because guess what? If they have a problem with it, that means they're not happy about themselves. They're not secure about themselves. It's their problem. They don't care. And just be happy with who you are and be who you are.
Yep. Or, it's great that this conversation brought us here, because on Saturday, after I was the designated driver, and again, there's no reason to drive. And the perfect example is, we were at one bar and we decided to go to another bar. I had driven, and the group of people that we were with decided to take an Uber. We got to the bar. We both left
I wish I would have
had
that fare.
That would be great. Yep. You make me went a whole 5 feet away. But
it's fine. It's still going to be a few dollars there coming in.
Ordered an Uber. By the time we got into our vehicle, drove to the other bar, we got there at literally the exact same time. There's not even any gap of a time frame for you to have to wait for the Uber. It's so on the spot.
It depends. It's going to depend on where you are.
Of course, it's a holiday night, but
no, I get that. But so there's a lot of drivers out. Even though, so I went driving last night. It was fucking crazy busy. The whole area was just lighting up with drive here, and it was like, you made a ton of money, because it's one of the busiest nights of the year. It's the weekend before Halloween, so all the bars have their dress up costume parties. All these crazy things. Speaking of, since you went out to the bar, did you dress up?
This year, I had the cheapest costume that I've ever had in my career.
A podcaster?
I should have been a podcaster. Next year, I'm going to be a podcaster. Remind me. That's great. I didn't even. Where were you 3 days ago?
What was 3 days ago? Thursday?
That would have.
Why
did you suggest
driving?
So, I was ill prepared. Last year I was completely ill prepared. I didn't have any costumes. So this time.
So you were a college kid last year.
Pretty much. I did Phantom of the Opera this year.
Okay.
But I just wore a suit, and I bought literally a $3 plastic mask, because the place that I went to was sold out of the real ceramic Phantom of the Opera masks. So I got a plastic one for literally $3, and it made my face look all weird. So I wasn't really anything, but our friend was Jessica Rabbit.
So you were Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
So you said she was Jessica Rabbit.
She was Jessica Rabbit.
Man, those tatas were popping out. I bet, weren't they?
They did not pop out.
Really?
They did not come out. They were not out. She somehow kept them in.
She probably taped it.
I was gonna say
she probably put some tape on her
tape
fucking on that.
No, somehow they held. I don't know.
Wow.
And it's one of those things where the whole time every guy I was like just a little bit more pop out.
Yeah, right.
They're gonna come out.
I bet she taped them. I don't
think she did, because I was gonna say you need double-sided tape for those things. But it was fun. And then we went from one bar now this is what I like. It was an intimate environment where there was a guy playing the guitar and singing.
Yeah.
And
but where you are, it's a smaller spot, and it's more of a neighborhood area.
And the club atmosphere was fun too. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of really good costumes there. I saw there was a dude who had a rainbow light up jacket that was like LED rainbow. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. I'm trying to think of the good costumes that I saw. But yeah, it was fun.
I went as the Invisible Man. Oh, did you see me?
No.
So I won. I won the fucking costume night.
Yeah, that was fun. And it was a good time, but no drinking and driving. So then on the way home, exactly what you just said about nobody gives a shit about you. Like, unless you're doing horrible things and out there being a horrible person, I was limiting myself of, things that I didn't even know what I liked, because you grow up. For me, I grew up like the value system that I'm taught by the people around me. Turns out, like, why was I listening to them? I could have just discovered things that I like.
Well, one of the problems though that I see or notice is when people try to imprint themselves onto you or put expectations onto you, but then. So that's one aspect, and then like the other aspect is it can be people who think they know what they're talking about but really have no idea. So like a lot of the problem is our parents don't necessarily have true financial sense when it comes to it, because one, they don't know because they've never been trained or formally educated in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
They just know what they know, and they expect you to know, or not expect you to know, but try to pass that down, when in fact what they did at their time might not necessarily be what it is today, and all that fun stuff.
I was thinking about that, and I held a lot of anger because of that. I'm like, why don't you know these common sense things? But the thing that we have to realize is those people did not grow up with the dispersal of information that we have at our fingertips today, which is really hilarious, because I saw something on the internet that the other day where most people have the ability to literally look up anything, that get the answer to anything in their pocket, usually with cell phones. You can look up the answer, and still so many people are wrong about everything. I thought that was hilarious. But it is true when we really have the answer to everything at our fingertips. But still so many people are wrong and spreading, misinformation, which is true. But I did realize that, our previous generations past did not have the access to the information that we have at our fingertips today. The internet really is changing the world, where you can literally learn anything. And generations before us, they had access to that information, but it was through books. You had to physically go to either school or a library, and you had to learn it through a book, or through radio or television, which was a lot of times very edited and very skewed, to whereas now with the internet, if you're living in a free society, if you're in an area in the world that doesn't limit speech subjectively, you do have access to literally the facts of information. And if you're in a society that's a modern society where you have a good internet connection, you can look up facts about math, science, you look up the weather. But the previous generations do not have that information. They're going by word of mouth, what they were taught in the specific environment that they were in, and also if they're a person who wakes up in the morning and doesn't give any thought to learning or education, to just try to get through their day, or their value system of what they were taught is important. I'm trying to realize that we're living in a different environment now than any other human being ever has when it comes to the access of it to information. So it's hard for me to fault previous generations now, where I think, well, they should have known better or done differently. And human progress is learning. I guess, as a species, the goal is to be better than your predecessor. But that being said, there's a lot of common sense things that you would think are common sense that people are not doing. And even in today's society, there's a lot of people out there who are just so ingrained and so taught that, well, this is the way you do it, and this is how everyone does it, and this is it, and they never have like an introspective look at themselves or anyone around them, because they're just in that tiny little area that they grew up in, and they're taught, well, this is how it's always been done. And if you try to question that belief, or even try to get people to even say, hey, that opinion that you have, why do you have that opinion? Let's take a look. Why is that the best thing that we can do? So I was saying that I kind of can't fault people, because I've held a lot of anger about, like, well, why isn't this way, or why did this person do that way? But then I thought, they didn't have access to the plethora of information that we literally have today, where we can look up answers in our pockets.
Well, that's not really true. I mean, they
had
might
to go
not
to a
have
library.
They might not have. Well,
You could learn if you wanted to.
there's certain. I mean, you could learn, but the knowledge that we have today is wishy-washy in a lot of ways.
That's what's
because
hilarious about it.
it's a lot of bullshit and
Yep.
satire that's out there that
Misinformation.
people think is legit.
Yeah.
And they'll share it, and then the thing is, they'll read the article headline, which is clickbait, just so you can get clicks.
Yep.
And nobody actually reads the article, or very little of the article, to realize that it's all bullshit.
Yep.
And the other thing is, it's very hard to see what's real and what's not, because the way it's written, the way it's figured out, you just don't really know. So yeah, it's a problem where the fact that you just don't have an idea. I mean, you don't know. And so what you used to know to what you know now is a little different. You have a lot more information at your disposal, but you have a lot of bullshit information at your disposal now too. And then the other thing too is, you're just not trained properly. So what it was like back, in the 50s to the 80s, it was like kind of like the golden age of, fabrication, and just a lot of places around the United States was very well off, because there was a lot of infrastructure, there was a lot of plants being built, and a lot of things that were being exported throughout the rest of the world, because the rest of the world was lacking in that area compared to us. So, between that time, between the 50s and the 80s, you had that gilded age where you could go there, you were getting paid well, and you could, put this savings away. The housing market was lower. The cost of goods was lower. All of these things. So the ratio of your income to expenses, you had more disposable income. Today, yeah, you make more money, but your expenses have risen higher than that. So it's harder to make money. Back in the 50s and that, you could have a brand new, beautiful house for under 20 grand. You could have a car for, $1,500, $2,500 brand new. And yeah, okay, you might be making a few dollars or whatever it might be, but you had a much better disposable income coming in. And then once the 80s hit, when things started transitioning around the world, it was different, which means it changed what was going on in this world. So how you have a job, how you save, the type of jobs that were available, all of this has changed. So what our parents learned and did differs today, at least in an economic sense, because it's just completely different. It's a whole different world than what it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that's the problem is most people still take that sense from our parents, even though they don't necessarily know the truth behind it. And, today it's like, well, you want to have multiple sources of income, multiple gigs. I'm not necessarily saying multiple jobs, but you want to know how money can work for you. And the other thing is sometimes money just gets trickier and trickier because the banking system keeps making all these different regulations and the laws should change and differ where you don't even know, and you don't even know how it affects you, but it does. And so it's like all of these things are working against you and you don't even know you're playing that game.
Right.
Until you realize you're playing the game, and you don't even know the rules of the game because they keep it hidden from you.
Yep.
And that's one of the biggest problems.
It's the biggest problem. And it's interesting that you bring that up because for me, I have a limited sense on how things work, but I have a basic understanding, but most people don't. And it's like that with any industry, though. Now that I'm a little bit older, I've had a bunch of different jobs and exposed to different things. I was always very interested to see how things work behind the scenes. Like, oh, this is how this works. Like, how do we get merchandise around the world and into the United States? How does it work? How do taxes work? How does shipping work? Logistics, right? I was interested to learn about that. I worked for a communication firm where I was interested to learn how the infrastructure of our system works in our country. And if you are working for a bank, you get a behind-the-scenes look at how banking works, subjectively. And there's only so much you can learn, but there is behind everything. There's a system that a person in a different industry doesn't get to see. So,
especially if it's compartmentalized.
Yes, for sure. And I think that one of the things that has to happen, where the internet is great for being able to get misinformation, but why are things hidden? Like, for example, if you go to the store, when you see the price of something, that's the price that the store is charging you, but you're not seeing the behind the scenes of the profit margin or anything like that. Why?
Because those types of things, the question is, does it really matter?
I get it.
So, like, I don't really care what the profit is on something. Like, if I need it and that's the price that's agreed upon and that's the consumer price, it doesn't really matter.
I get it.
But there's certain things that there should be. So, like, one of the big things could be, what's in the products. So, specifically, one of the big questions is asbestos in baby powder in the talc mines, and did they find it? And you can test one way and find it, and test another way and not find it, and all these different things. And I mean, you could go in so many different directions with that.
Right.
But the thing is, I think something that affects you specifically, in terms of maybe things that are truly hidden,
right?
Like how finances and how your money works against you when you put it into the bank, or when you do this, that, and the other thing, and other people make money off of your money instead of you making off your own.
Well, that's what I mean.
And
so
the regulations.
Yeah, but the thing with me, but the thing where I wanted to go is this, like, when I buy something, I get it. Like, okay, the market should regulate, this water bottle is going to cost $150 and no one's going to buy it. Right. And then the price goes down because there's no demand. Right. That's the invisible hand. But in me being like a physics person, like the natural world, you can measure everything. You can measure how long it took someone to make this plastic bottle, what kind of labor was put into purifying the water. You can measure that. Right. So shouldn't this material cost how much it took in labor and materials to produce, right? Shouldn't in a perfect world that doesn't exist, but shouldn't that how our economy functions, right?
It does, because you take the cost of the product, you take the cost of the labor, you take the cost of everything, and you add it in, and that's what your cost
And
of the
then
product
you
is.
have a ridiculous markup as high as you can where people will purchase it to try to get that profit. That's where that is what the market
but
in our society regulates.
Again, though, those types of things doesn't matter.
Well,
Like,
it
who gives a
does because the invisible hand, the market is supposed to regulate that thing. Whereas if I'm charging $100 for this product, you can come along and say, you know what, I'm only going to charge $50. Buy my product, and then people will buy your product, and I have no choice but to lower the cost of my product.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing because.
Yeah.
But
That's how an economy
that's the big thing. The people are going to buy or not buy things based on a price. So it's a collaborated effort.
Right.
So what goes into this product, this water bottle and everything behind it?
Right.
Who gives a fuck about all the other stuff?
That's where my brain works
but the thing
differently
is,
than people.
But the problem is you're looking at it the wrong way.
Yeah.
You should again, don't waste your effort, don't waste your energy on the shit that actually doesn't matter, and refocus it on shit that does matter. Like, why do people not understand how money actually works? Yeah. Why don't people understand how interest actually works and how, stocks work and like, find out things that actually make a difference to somebody when a bottle of water with its contents and all of the other crap that goes into it, and that doesn't matter because it's already marked.
It's cumulative, and that's where I was going with that. Like, this is a small example about something that you can make a decision in the margin of whether you're going to buy that bottle or not. But I still mean knowing, like, okay, if this bottle is $100, to me, it's not worth buying. I can make that decision. But if you don't know behind the scenes what's going on with exactly what you said, how mortgage-backed securities work, how money gets into the hands of people.
And that's exactly it. That's what you should be focusing on.
For sure.
But the thing is, it's like, ooh, shiny. Essentially what they're tangling this little thing in front of you that says, ooh, shiny object. And you're going for it and saying, well, what if I look at this? Because this is tangible right in front of me. The thing is, what really matters is the intangible. Because the intangible is not something that you actually see, feel, touch, taste, anything. But it still governs your life. Right. So, if you really wanted to figure certain things out, you could be like, all right, well, electricity is intangible, but I see its effects. Yeah. I see the lights around me. I see the microphone working. Right. I see the video recording. I see everything that's going on there. And yeah, it's nice to know the behind the scenes, but you only need to know the generalized form of those things. But when you need to know the specifics is when it actually affects you and you don't know it.
Right.
So that means, again, like certain things like in your products, like, okay, is there really asbestos in talc powder and baby powder?
Yeah.
We don't know. And the only way you can really know is if you actually take that substance or take a sample from different places and take it directly to a place that breaks down all of the information in the finest possible way, meaning having a telescope or a microscope or what is that? Electron microscope, I think they would use to find out what's in it. To break it down, whatever instrument, it has to be the farthest calibrated it possibly can, meaning instead of 0.000, maybe it needs to go to 0.0000000. Right. And then you could see its variance between, because yes, I could say, oh, I'm a company that makes this powder, and if I only have an instrument that reads to 0.0, it doesn't pick up anything else,
of course,
but talc.
Right.
But if I have an instrument that goes 0.000, now it picks up something else that could be a problem.
Yeah.
And if that's a problem, our entire production
that's the whole question.
Is at risk. So those types of things need to be actually searched and evaluated. But what the water that you get, the plastic bottle, it's already known and checked out by many people. So it's that type of thing, you're wasting your energy on something that's already.
Well, I'm just using that as an example of the why human beings feel the need to basically deceive other people, where they're trying to. It just, if you're thinking of like the Avengers, where Thanos wants everything to be balanced, to me,
You can't. No. Hold on. You can't use. Okay, Thanos. You cannot use in this type of scenario because
we'll think of the scales of justice. You've seen the woman with the right?
Yeah.
Well, to me, everything can be measured, and because human beings are not computers, you can never measure everything and every decision that you make. Saying, okay, well, this took this amount of labor and materials to make, so
that is all measured.
It is measured. Each companies can measure that, right?
No, they do measure that.
Right.
That's the thing. They do measure it.
So then you have someone in a boardroom who's saying, okay, well, this is how much energy that we put into this, and we're trying to get more energy out of it than we put into it. That is profit. But
no, well, that's the thing. It's not energy going in, energy coming out.
Well, it depends on what you're keeping track of. So if you're keeping track of labor, of hours human beings worked to produce something, and resources, where the resource coming from.
But value and energy are two completely different things.
We're not talking about value. Value is where that's the market.
That's what you're talking about. If you're saying I'm putting energy in and trying to get more out, it's because you're specifically saying the value of something at the end of it, because that's what creates a profit.
That's
you
where
can't
the gap
say
is.
the energy for profit
energy.
because that's not real. That's not
it is
a
energy.
viable thing.
So what's happening is that in physics, you're never going to get more energy out of something than you put into it. That's physics. But profit is trying to get more energy out of something than you put into it, so that you can benefit.
You can't use
but there
energy
has
as
to
the
be.
word, though.
Well, that's what labor is. It's taking humans' energy and putting into something.
But the thing is, you're transforming it. But the thing is, you're not saying this is going to delay. You're forgetting that there's a thing called built-in profit. You're putting together two things and trying to switch the words around when in fact it's like apples to oranges. You can't do that.
No, there's a disconnect. So like, why don't products cost what the energy and materials to put into them is? Now, I understand, again, human beings are not computers. A physical person cannot measure everything and every decision at all times, but a group of people can, and they do. You're exactly right. Like this took this much labor and resources to produce. They have it measured out by units. But then when they're putting the product on the market, like, okay, well, we're going to sell it for 2 or 3 units higher than what we use to produce it to try to make a profit so that people can benefit. But that's tipping the scale. There has to be a negative reaction to that. That means that someone has to give up more energy that they put in to get that product. That's why I think like everything needs to be much more balanced. And that's why we see the inequality that we see in the world today, because the scales are tipped, and we've got to really work on leveling it back.
That has nothing to do with the energy of something. It has to do with factors that are outside that, which is called greed. And then also when you have money,
that's my whole thing.
You want more money, of course, because you want to continue. You break into this life cycle or this lifestyle that you want to continue that.
Of course.
And if you're somebody who's making $50,000 a year and you're living a lifestyle at $50,000 a year, then that's what you know. Mm-hmm. But if you break into a lifestyle that, let's say, is $10 million a year, you just disproportionately gained yourself,
right? And
now you will do everything to stay at that,
right?
So, like, all right, one of the easiest things I can use or use as a true example is, so my YouTube analytics. Mm-hmm. Everything's broken down, every single point. I mean, there's so much information from the analytics. It's amazing at how much everything is broken down. But the thing that I look at is view count, because essentially view count equals ads played, which equals revenue, which means money in my pocket. So the one thing that you look at, you see the graph of the views per day, and it goes, it's always different. And you'll see when you're in a good wave or a good high function, you're like, that's where I want to be. But that might be that's the height. And you're like, I want to keep at that point. I want to stay at that point. But in the reality of the situation is that's just part of the wave. The wave has to go down. So you're going to go back. And that's the whole thing. It's this correction thing. So you hit the ceiling and then it brings it down. You don't hit the floor because now your new floor is where the average is. And then when you spike up again, it'll go to a new higher ceiling. And that's like, so there's this weird connection that you place when it's not a tangible thing. Like a view count isn't tangible compared to money that's going into your pocket. Although one has a vast, one has a direct correlation with the other. So that's the whole thing. It's like, you can't say, again, the energy put in and you're trying to get more energy out because you're using the wrong terminology and you're labeling it wrong right off the bat. So you're making a problem for yourself where you're like, well, I don't understand this. I don't
that's
get
all
it.
that there is, though, in reality.
But that's not, because that's
where the disconnect is, because
but that's
us
the
as
difference.
human beings, we can't
but again,
use our
the difference
primitive
here,
brains to measure.
Hold on. The difference here is you're saying I put energy in that in, but you're not getting energy out, or you're not bringing energy. It's the value then you place on it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So
That's
you're
the market
saying,
system. That's the
No,
flaw in human beings that we live in
but
today.
it's the labeling that you're misconnecting, that you are misconnecting,
Well,
not anybody
I'm not
else.
following you.
Exactly. Yeah. But here's the thing. Yes, energy goes into this product, whether it's labor, whether it's
Labor and
resources, whether it's whatever it is that goes into this, the transportation, everything that goes from how this water was, even going back further, when the icy comet that came by and let off some of the gas that collected in our atmosphere and collected down and rained out over billions and billions of years since the beginning of time.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with human effort, though.
But it all would be played into it, because how this bottle, which came from oil, which came from living species, which again came from every speck of dust out there,
right?
All of that coalesced into this water bottle. Yeah. Yes, that was energy that was expended in order to get it. But the thing is, you're not saying I'm trying to gain more energy back, because it's not. There's no energy.
Maybe
coming
I should
back.
rephrase it. You didn't follow me with what I'm saying.
No, but what I'm saying. Hold on. What I'm saying is, its value is placed. If value and energy are not the same
you're
thing,
misconstruing
and that's
what I'm saying.
that's what you're saying.
No, it's not what I said. So let me rephrase and try to
then
so
use
that you'll
different
pick up.
words.
Yeah, human energy. When companies are calculating how much something costs to produce, they calculate resources, but they calculate energy of labor. Okay, we're talking about human energy of labor. That's how everything around the world is made. It's by human labor, or a human made a machine that did the labor, but still a human was involved. That's how everything is produced. So when companies are calculating the cost of a product, they're calculating, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but me physically producing a good, I have to eat food, I have to expend calories, I have to use physical labor, which we can measure in time. And subjectively, you could probably physically measure in force the amount of human calories that someone burned, if you really wanted to produce a product, right?
Yeah.
But then when that product gets to the market, let's say that this costs 100 calories for someone to make. Okay, they spent, it took a human being's power 100 calories to make this. Well, then when it goes to the market, you try to sell it for 1,000 calories and get a net gain out of that, which that goes against physics. So that net gain has to be made up somewhere.
Even right there, when you say it's 100 calories to burn it, and you're trying to get 1,000 calories.
That's not the way the economy works. But that's how physics works, and that's where the gap.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But this isn't physics.
The entire universe is physics.
Yes,
Chris.
but that's not physics.
Yes,
it's
because human beings cannot calculate. They're not supercomputers. So what I'm hoping.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Again, here's the thing. It doesn't matter because that's not the meaning of what's placed on this. That's not how the value or the cost is associated with this. Your human brain is
giving it a value, making a judgment at a margin without having all of the facts. So if you knew that this object cost 1,000 calories or 100 calories for a human being to produce, and then they're saying to you, yes.
Yeah, but because
you don't have all the information.
Matter.
So if someone said to you.
But the thing is, that information has no bearing.
That's why we see
care.
That's why we see the inequality that we have in the world and the gap between the most affluent people in society is widening. It's because of this exact system that we're describing. But if you had all of the information, would you pay more for that than you knew that it cost to produce? If you knew if it took me an hour to make this, and I said, you know what? I want you to work 3 hours for this, even though you know that I only worked for an hour. I want you to produce something that takes 3 hours for you to make, and we'll trade. But you know that I only worked an hour for this. You'd probably have reservations of whether you're going to buy that or not if you had all the information. The reason that we're making decisions when we're buying things of what is valuable to us is most of the time we don't have all of the information because it is hidden.
What's one bottle of water cost?
Just using this as an example.
I'm saying, what's one bottle of water cost at the store?
Well, we'll say $1.
$1.39.
But I prefer calories because it's an easier way to when we're saying human effort.
Yes, but that's the thing. You're mislabeling everything because nothing is based on that. Everything is based on value. So you're looking at look at
it. I'm aware of how the current economy works.
If you're the CEO, you're saying, what does this bottle, the bottling and the packaging cost? What does that cost?
The totality of producing the product.
What does this wrapper cost?
Yeah.
What does this cost?
Yes.
You're looking at a cost analysis and then you're saying, okay, well, this goes into it, and then what goes into shit? Like you're looking at everything from the beginning of its life to the sale of its life, and saying what is the cost of that?
Right.
You're coming up with this number,
yes,
which could be we'll say X.
Yep.
X is the number for it. But we're going to sell it at 3X,
yes,
because we need to make a profit because. Whatever
that is the way our current economy works.
But
correct.
That does not look at all when it comes to energy because that's not where they're looking at. You are basing something or trying to put energy into something when that's not the case of how products and how services are done. It's all based on value, which is not inside physics.
When it gets to the market, yes, they're trying to see how much you'll pay for something. That's the That is exactly how we have the inequality that we have.
The inequality
exactly what's happening.
The reason why we have inequality is
exactly because of that. Because you try to get three times out of something that it actually costs.
No, the reason
you just described it.
The reason why is because of just greed, and then you're accustomed to a lifestyle that you all of a sudden get. So if you're the CEO and you have, a $10 million a year salary,
right,
or with bonuses and all that, you want to continue that. And then you say, hey, and then you're going to do things that will get you more money and net you more money. And but the other, look at Elon Musk. He's a perfect example because he has Tesla. He has the solar division, the car division. He has SpaceX. He has the Hyperloop. He has the flamethrower. He has all of these different companies that are running.
Yeah.
a worker, a normal worker,
Yeah.
they're only looking at time for money.
Yeah.
They're only looking at how I can get paid to pay the bills that I have.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a CEO or you're the top person, you say, okay, great, I have this company. And yes, you're looking out for all the people that you're working for or that are working for you. You're looking out for all of your, the everything that you need in order to procure your product and make your product and then be able to sell your product. You're looking at all of those things and trying to protect that as well. Mm-hmm. So you're doing all that. And then you get the profit on top of that after everything's done. But then you get to take that and say, well, this is great and product A is good or business A is good. Mm-hmm. But I've also wanted to do business B. And then you start doing that. The thing is, it's the people who are making companies and creating companies. They don't have just one company, and they're not doing just one thing where they're trading time for money like the average worker. Mm-hmm. They're working on a different platform and a different level than most people. And the problem is this is the problem that is the unforeseens, and these are the things that you should be focusing on when you're talking about it, because this is the unforeseen where people are getting confused, is the fact that you're lumping all these massive million billionaires together with people who are the
I'm not
average.
lumping anything.
When you're talking about income disparity and income difference, that's when
what I described.
You're grouping it. No, you're grouping it together.
No, I'm definitely not.
Yeah, you are.
What I described is taking product X that caused product X and saying I want 3 times product X back. That's what's causing the inequality. That's all I'm saying.
No,
it's trying to get more energy out of something than you put into it. That's what's causing the inequality.
Again, it's not based in energy in any way, shape, or form. It's based on value.
Why is it? Well, value again, is what you're putting on
value,
it. That's the disparity.
But that's the thing. Value is what's creating all of it.
That's how the market works. I'm aware of how the market works.
But see, here's the thing. Again, income inequality is based on the fact where CEOs of companies might own a sports team, which generates a lot of money, which also they might own a couple of restaurants, which generate a lot of money. So they start building assets and they start building things.
Yeah, I'm aware
an
of how
empire.
Things work.
But the thing is, you can't group that person in with the average worker, they get their income. But when you say income inequality, you are.
No. So why is it acceptable in society for me not to have all of the information? Why shouldn't I know exactly how much energy was put into this so that I can make a decision of whether I want to sacrifice my own energy to acquire this object? Why is it hidden? That's my whole question. Why, as human beings, why do we have to feel like, okay, I'm just going to label this. I want to try to get $1,000 out of it. I'm going to label it. Oh, no one's buying it at $1,000. I'm aware of how the market works. That's the gap. And it's because human beings on a day-to-day basis cannot make that decision. We can't measure everything.
Yeah, but that's
right? We don't have
the whole thing
supercomputers.
Too. It's also a collective.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and
that's how the
whole
market
thing.
regulates
It's
itself.
a consumer collective. Right. So if you go to a mall and you go to a store that sells shirts and pants, and you say, and you have 2 stores next to each other.
Yeah.
And this shirt has a logo or a saying on it that everybody wants, and they sell it for $65 for that shirt.
Right.
And then you go to the shirt store right next to it, which has no logo on it whatsoever, but it's the exact same shirt besides that, and they sell it for $8.
Yeah, I'm aware.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's called making decision in the margin. I'm aware of how it works. But in reality, why on both of those shirts don't they have, this took a person 1 hour to make. This shirt took a person 1 hour to make.
Because
if you want this material,
nobody cares about that.
Well, I do, and a lot of people do. And the problem is exactly what you're talking about with people growing up in a small little area and just going along with it. This is the status quo. This is how it's always been. And we're used to it. So we're acceptable of just making trade-offs every day and making decisions.
But that's the whole thing.
But that doesn't mean it has to be that
First of all, it's information overload because you could give fucking X times amount of information about some stupid little product when it really doesn't matter because it's not going to
why don't
really
they just
make
have
a
it labeled
decision
for what it
you.
actually costs?
There is. It's the price. But again,
No, that's the profit margin. That is not the price.
The price is what you pay.
You put whatever. Yeah, that's not the cost. The cost is what a human being put into making that object. That it's the expenditure of energy.
No, it's not just
person,
labor. It's also product costs. Whatever
that's
the
what the product
itself.
cost is.
Yeah, but the price
why,
of something is the overall price.
No, that's just an imaginary made up thing where they're trying to get profit. So why isn't I'll use a different term. Why isn't the product cost labeled so that I can make an educated decision on how much I want to sacrifice for that product? Why do they have to keep
find
it
that out? You can.
I'm sure you could.
It's not that hard
why
to
don't
find
they,
things
why don't
out.
they label it in the first place?
You can for a 16.9 ounce fluid
find
ounce
out how
bottle
much
of water.
product costs that bottle.
Well,
water costs.
yeah, dude, it's all over the place. I'm not gonna go on the phone right now to search
Why
it
is it
when you're
labeled?
going upstairs.
That's my
because it just hasn't been. If you want to look it up, you can.
Well, why isn't everything labeled out?
I don't know why you're still talking because nobody can hear you. So yeah, that we're going to switch topics completely and entirely now because that's just no reason to go on with that. I don't know. Let's talk. What do you guys want to know? No, I really don't know. Ooh, Wine Advent Calendar is coming back. So, hey, maybe when this starts playing, just so you know, there's a Wine Advent Calendar coming to Aldi's, apparently. So if you enjoy wine, like a lot of people do, you can do that and get a Wine Advent Calendar. But, yeah.
We're talking off the microphone, but let me...
Moving on to a different subject. No, moving on to a new subject.
I have one thing to add.
Moving on to a new subject.
Well, I have one thing to add. So
you can add at a different time.
No,
moving on.
I'm
to
going
a new
to
subject.
finish. Well, you don't get to decide when we move on.
Moving on to another subject.
You don't get to decide to move on. I can finish my point if I want to.
Moving on to another subject.
I can finish my discussion. So hear me out.
How do you feel about the temperature out there?
No.
And
Listen,
the weather.
You're not listening.
Because I don't care anymore.
Okay, well, we're going to finish our thought and then we can move on.
No, I don't fit.
You have to give another person an opportunity to finish what they're talking about. You're the one who's always advocating. We need to be able to share ideas and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but here's
well,
the
if
thing.
you don't hear something that you like, you can't just change the subject. Well, let me finish one thing and then we can move on. There are certain things that are regulated. For example, an auto mechanic. When you go to an auto mechanic, they have a blue book of auto mechanic where you can look up, this is how long the standard is supposed to take to repair this item. And this is the cost of labor. It's usually, I think it's around $80 or $90 now. So my whole thing is, you know how much that is supposed to take to fix your radiator or to fix your thing. There are things that are generally regulated. I don't understand why everything is not that way.
Okay.
That's all.
First of all, an auto mechanic shop varies from shop to shop. It's not regulated by the state or the federal government or anybody that says this is what the rate is.
They have a labor rate.
Yeah, they have a labor rate that the regulation is to show you what the labor rate is, but it's not. It varies from shop to shop. So you could have one shop that says $72 an hour.
For sure.
But here's the other thing too. It's that 72. Let's just say that shop that you go to that says $72 an hour. First of all, that person, that auto mechanic that's working in your car is not getting paid $72 an hour.
Of course not.
They're taking into a lot of different factors. They're taking into the lights, or the electric bill. They're taking into the gas. They're taking into the tools. They're taking into the actual person who's working on your car, or people that might have to work on your car. They're taking into account the products. The warehouse that they have to store the products. They're taking into all of this other account information just to come up with the labor rate itself. But the labor rate really does not reflect what that person or the actual human that's working on your car. It does not reflect. That's also a made up number, just like the price.
You're right,
just like the price.
But more importantly, if you have a Jeep, there's a book that you look into, like, oh, this is how many work hours it's supposed to take to fix your radiator in your Jeep. And that's how much they charge you for. Whatever that book says, that's what the rate that they go by. But you get to make an informed decision.
But here's the other thing with that too. It might say 6 hours.
Yeah, and take 2.
But in reality, it really only takes 2. So
get
here's the thing. There's all of these disconnects, and there's all of this again, it's all this misinformation. Right. And you're trying to, the problem is you're trying to equate it with this aspect of something, but that's not how it works in the scheme of things. Of course not. And the scheme of things is over here.
Yeah.
And that's,
you said
where and how it is.
The word scheme.
And again, that's the reality of the situation.
Of course it is.
So
we wouldn't be having this conversation
here's the thing.
if the reality was acceptable.
When you're over here in this realm of non-existence, there's no point to be there.
No, because that's how change takes place.
But the thing is, you're putting in energy, your own energy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use energy because this is where energy actually is. You're putting in energy that doesn't matter, when in fact, why don't you look into the realm of the scheme and say, okay, well, why is it $72 an hour, but this mechanic is getting paid $14 an hour? The bills don't cost that much, this, that, and the other thing, and seeing where the disconnects are, and then actually saying it. Like, let's look at a perfect example of this is Edward Snowden.
Okay.
And the whistleblowing he did. So everybody knows who Snowden is at this point. But he whistleblew what was going on in the realm of, the government spying on its own people and things like that. So he blew the whistle off that. And he was talking about, okay, well, this is what's happening. And, some things came out, other things apparently didn't come out, whatever it might be. But he's focusing on the inaccuracies and the problems that nobody really knew about. And if people did know, they were trying to masquerade it by certain things. So he focused on, not focused, but he found something that wasn't right or wasn't in accordance with the law and was being held from the American people. So he said, okay, well, how can I get that information out to the people so they know and they understand, and then they can make the right decisions on how to proceed from there. And he makes good points saying that in time and over, certain bills or laws or executive orders or things that have been passed due to certain, emotional reactions that people had, or tolls that people had to pay, they've exploited and changed the way government works. Instead of it being, a government for the people, it's a government that the people are subjected to the government. So it transitioned. And that's the whole thing. Like, people just don't know that. So those to me are the more things that are beneficial to know, because it's something that could have a vast impact on your life, or even the government itself, if people were more, even in knowledge, like all the stuff that came out. Like, if you actually go back and listen to like the media, they're like, oh, there's this wiretapping program and this, that, and the other, but it didn't address a lot of the things that he was talking about in more detail. And that's where a lot of focus should go, because that's what's actually could affect people on a greater scale or a vast scale. But like, looking at how a product itself is or labeled as a price to be, that's important. Yes.
Right.
But you can find that information. I can find what it costs to make a bottle. I can find what it costs to make
every single day
the water.
When you're going around and you're like, okay, here's some chicken, here's some this, here's some that. I'm just using this as a small example, because once you see how commodities and things work behind the scenes, but even your clothing, everything that you make in a day-to-day choice, you're saying, yeah, I can look this up on my phone, or because we do have technology these days. Every choice. So you go to buy a can of soup. Okay, I'm going to look at the product cost for the can of soup. Then I'm going to go over here and look at the chicken. That's all you would be doing.
Yeah.
Why isn't it labeled in the first place? But that's the thing.
Anything tangible can have that. And if you really want to find the information out, you can.
You can.
That's
but
the thing. You can.
My bigger
but
point is you're making my point for me is why isn't it just on there so I can make the informed decision? Why are these things hidden? Exactly with what you said about Snowden. These these programs that we don't even know the scope of, really. He only exposed a very small sliver about what's actually going on out there. Mm-hmm. We don't know the scope. And I get the idea of classification where he made a good point where he's like, I'm going to give the information to reporters. They can decide what they want to put out. I'm not going to be the judge. And they'll withhold things that they think are important. I understand the need for national security. You can't expose operatives that are trying to do things in a foreign land and endanger someone's lives. But he does make a good point. Why aren't we informed about these programs where we can make an educated guess and say, yes, I agree with this, or no, I don't agree with this, but I feel the same way about pricing of products in our economy. I should have the information, and then I can make the decision of how much of my time and effort I'm willing to sacrifice for that product.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing.
And we're doing that anyway.
Again,
I
though,
get that.
it's first of all, it's the tangible versus the intangible. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about a tangible product that you can hold in your hand, that you can a service or something, all of that you can track. You can find the information out for that. You look, but the thing is, here's the thing. You don't look at a water bottle and say, oh, this is what the actual price of something was and compare it to the price that you pay for it.
I like the term product cost.
But here's the thing. You look at the price you'd have to pay for it and make that decision if you think it's worth it or not. And that's the whole thing. Like the other costs associated with it doesn't really matter because it's the final cost of the product that you have to fork over in money that actually matters. And that's when you look at this product and say, is this worth the $1.39 that I have to pay for it? And then if you get the 35 pack that they have, it's $2.99. So that's this same water bottle now becomes less than 10 cents.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, well, this water bottle costs 10 cents. This water bottle costs $1.39.
Right. So
that aspect I can understand. Yes. Yeah. You want to know that information. Well, what would be the bulk price? What would be the unit price and all that? Right. But here's the thing. That's the thing. You're looking at the final price and saying, is it worth it to me to fork over $2.99 for a 35 pack or $1.39 for one? And you make that decision based on that final price and what you value it as. Not necessarily what the value is or what things go into it. You base it on the final cost. That's why the final cost is there. Right. If you want to know everything that goes into it, you could find that information out.
How about this?
Hold on. But then you go into the intangible, and that's where so interest, banks, banking systems, all of these things operate in intangible
it's getting
ways.
Farther away from actual labor, which is what everything on the planet is made from human labor.
And that's
a whole nother issue.
But the thing is, that's where all of these discrepancies can come from.
Yep,
because again,
you're right. It's
again, I can look at this and I can say, I know how many fluid ounces or milliliters are in this bottle. I know what the weight of this bottle is. I know the I can tell you the exact cost of this exact bottle 100%.
Well, how many calories did it take a human being to produce that?
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. Like
saying it doesn't matter.
But the thing is, the expenditure doesn't matter.
It does matter because that's what we're doing when we're working.
But that's the thing.
Expelling energy.
But the thing is, the energy expenditure doesn't matter when it comes to a valued product or a value price.
It definitely
but when you're looking at an intangible thing, whether it's a system, whether it's
what you just said is the problem.
No,
that's what the problem is. Every single thing is human energy. And you're glossing over the fact that, let's say that I make
water in this bottle did not come from a person. A person bottled it, but the water itself came from a comet, came from wherever in the known universe.
What does that have to do with the labor that someone paid that person for producing that bottle?
But the thing is, the water in here...
That's how our economy works.
The water in here is a chemical reaction, a chemical
you're
bond.
You're conflating your way off base.
No, I'm not. Because the water, a person did not make this water.
That's not what we're talking about.
Yes, you are. You're asking.
Now
the
you're
energy.
telling me no. That's not what we're talking about.
But the thing is, I'm telling you what you say to me and the way I'm interpreting.
Well,
it.
you're interpreting wrong. Let me try it a different way.
So, but hold on. But I want to clear myself so then you can change what you need to say. What you said is a human bottled.
You're putting words in my mouth again.
No, you said that the human expenditure of putting the calories of putting this water bottle together includes
the product cost. I like the term product cost.
Yeah, but
which is when a person uses their energy to produce something and someone gives them. This is what the problem is. So I'll try to put it this term. Let's say that you make widgets. Okay, you're a person. Your job is to make widgets, and you can make 100 widgets. Okay, make 100 of these little widgets that go into something. Okay, you can produce with your physical energy. You eat food, which gives you energy. You go to work, and in 1 hour, we have to use a scale. In 1 hour, you can produce, let's say, 100 widgets. Okay, your output is 100 widgets, and we'll say that there are some human beings who can produce 110 widgets an hour, and there's other human beings who can only produce 90. But we'll say the human mean of the average human being producing widgets.
But I don't want to know that. I want to know the specific individual.
Okay, so you produce 100 widgets, okay? Now, let's say that it takes that same person doing the same job, they can produce 10 water bottles. Let's say, just hypothetically, they can produce 10 water bottles. It takes a human being an hour to produce 10 water bottles. Now, in an ideal, perfect situation where we have supercomputers or some kind of ultimate thing that can measure every single thing that went into that the human being's calories and effort went into it, we could measure it. You can get 10 water bottles for 100 widgets. So that would mean that you would get 10 widgets you'd get 1 water bottle, right? But then when you put that product to market, you say, I'm going to charge 30 widgets for this water bottle. Well, now you're creating a gap, a discrepancy, a vacuum where someone has to work and produce 30 widgets for that 1 water bottle, where you're creating a vacuum. That has to be made up somewhere. So that person has to work harder. And that's the same thing that I have the problem with interest.
But that's the whole thing.
Now, in the grand scheme of things...
But hold on. A monetary system is not the same thing as the energy that's put into a product or anything.
And that's our economy.
That's the thing.
So all I'm saying is, why don't I just at least have the knowledge to say it took a human being this? I just want to have the information, not to say that that's how much it has to be, but I just want to be able to make an educated guess.
Okay, let me ask you one simple question.
That product took 10 widgets worth of, you know what I mean?
Let me ask you one simple question.
Why don't we have it?
Why does it matter?
Because then I can make a better guess of whether I want to go in the hole and know that I have to work 3 times harder than what that product actually costs. And it would make things level for everyone. Now, there's no way physically human beings can do that every single day. I get that.
But again, if it's labeled on here, why does it matter?
Because you can make a more educated guess of whether you want to enrich someone or you want things to, it would make things more equal. We're talking about equality generally. It would make things more equal. That's all I think.
Yeah, but again, you could say, okay, we'll use widgets. Let's just say this is 100 widgets.
Yep.
And let's just say the energy expenditure in this was 30 widgets. Mm-hmm. And you see that it's 30 widgets.
Yep.
That 30 widgets doesn't matter because the cost would be 100 widgets.
That's the imaginary price that a human being put as an imaginary value on that.
But that's what the value of it is.
That's how our current system works.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. Right.
We're not talking about our current system. We're talking about reforming the system.
You never said anything about reforming the system. You never said.
Why are we having this conversation?
I have no fucking idea because I have zero interest in this conversation.
Let's move on.
That's what I've been saying. To me, when I look at it,
if you want to work harder for less, be my guest.
No. What I'm saying is, all I'm looking at is the final price of the value of this. Yeah. I know what goes into it. And then here's the thing. I look at that bottle and I say, do I want to spend $1.39 for this? Hell fucking no, because it's not worth it when I can get the same exact bottle for less than 10 cents just walking over there and getting the same exact bottle and buying 30 packs. So essentially, I could buy 2 of these individually like this and spend more money than actually going to the 35 pack down the street, down the way.
Of course, any reasonable person would do that. No reasonable that's how our current system works. There's no debating that.
And that's the whole thing.
If you want to work harder for less, be my guest.
But that's the thing. It's the current system. So there's no way to like you're talking about trying to figure out these things about this, like this energy expenditure. But the thing is, energy and value are not the same, and they never will be.
Nobody said they were.
So that's the problem. We're living in a monetary system.
Yep, you got it.
Before, even when we were back bartering, when it was product for product or item for item,
subjectively, that might have been a better system in my view.
To a point, but it also could have been worse because so
I get it.
This half bottle of water right now has a whole different value here for you and me right now than somebody in the desert.
Of course, you're making a great point, but that's
that's the whole difference. But if I go to say Phoenix, which is in the middle of the desert, this bottle of water is going to cost the exact same there as it is here.
And that's taking advantage of someone's desperation for water when they're in their desert. And I don't agree with that either. That's another great point. Do you think that when there's like a hurricane?
But here's the thing. It's not taking advantage of the person if that's what they place the value on. Somebody in the desert who really needs this water to survive is going to look at this as gold to them versus us where it's rained outside all day today. And I can just take this and scoop it up and have a full bottle. So
but we're not talking about an area where there's scarce resources. That's where our planet, we're developing as a society. We still haven't been able to provide people with all of the food and all of the water that they need.
But are you understanding what I'm talking about? With
of course. There was never any debate. There was never any debate on human beings' value of something. That's how everything. Because again, I said at the very beginning, we're not supercomputers.
So here's the thing.
Can make these calculations on a day-to-day basis.
Here's the thing. I'll even throw this to you. And this is the last I want to talk about because I just don't care.
Yeah. Well, you should care because it affects you greatly.
No, I don't care about this conversation is what I'm saying. Because it's a hypothetical system that has no bearing in the real world. So that's the thing. That's why I don't focus on the bullshit. I focus on what
I'm saying has all of the bearing.
Hold on. No. But why don't you look at the bottle and say, okay, why do we have the monetary system that we have in place? And look at that and then ask the discrepancies of the actual monetary system that is putting the value on this product and every other product, whether it's tangible or intangible, but then looking at the system itself and finding out all the discrepancies there, because that's where the energy
I just use
can
this
be
as
focused.
a small example of there's a whole. I'm aware that there's a whole tangent that we could talk about how the stock market works, all of those again are intangible things.
Right. But the thing is, it's not a simple answer as saying, well, there's human input that energy is expenditured into making the creation of this product, and then I
just think that it's interesting.
Talking about the banking system is another thing. Talking about the stock system is another thing. Talking about the government.
Generally, I just think it's interesting in human society that even though companies do have this information, they don't put it on anything. And why in human society is it acceptable to essentially deceive when you're not labeling something the actual product cost? If you do have that information, it is a way of deceit by, not informing. And I just think I should have the.
But see, here's the thing. You made the point earlier too when you said, well, if somebody,
I just think human nature fascinates me.
But you say. Okay, I'm a CEO and I mark this at $100. Nobody's going to buy it because nobody's going to value that.
That's how our system works. I'm aware.
But that's the whole thing. It's a give and take on both sides. Sure. So we both agree that this one bottle is $1.39. Well, this 35 pack is $2.99. We all agree that.
Yeah.
We agree that when we buy in bulk, it's going to cost much less.
But in reality,
for whatever reason,
first of all, you knew that only cost you 10 cents, would you rather pay 10 cents for it?
Hold on. Well, actually, if you look at the
you know what I'm saying, though, right?
But here's the thing. If you look at the actual label when you walk into the store and you see unit price, that tells you what the price of it actually
kind of.
So
kind of, but not. Yeah. I get it. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But see, here's the thing. Like, for the average person who walks into the store and looks in the cooler and says, ooh, this one water bottle is $1.39. I'm going to get this. But yet they didn't know that if they walked in a little bit further, they could have the 35 pack that's $2.99. Then at that point, their decisions could have been made different. But the thing is, isn't it also on that person for not trying to search out all of the information?
Sure, of course. But also, like when it comes back to human labor, why should that person have to work 3 hours for that bottle rather than 1 hour? That's all I'm saying. And that's where the gap. That's where our the way that our economy works is flawed. And you can, but as human beings, we don't have a supercomputer for a brain. You cannot physically look up, probably could find the information, but when you go shopping, try to look up the actual cost of every item that you get.
You could. It's going to take time, though.
Try to read all of the terms and conditions of the things that you're agreeing to every day.
See, now that's the other.
There's not enough time.
Hold on. You want to talk about terms and conditions? That is a perfect example of the disconnect of people's behavior and the company or the service or the product that they have. So let's say Facebook. Yeah. Facebook has terms and conditions that you have to agree to in order to use it. And they have in there that it could change at any time. But how does that give informed consent or in all of the information right there? If one, they force you to accept that. How do you use Facebook without accepting the terms and conditions? See, that's the whole. That to me is a major issue.
It's also deceit. This is my whole.
That to me right there is an amazing issue right there. Is the fact that we all agree to these terms and conditions of any social media that we use for the most part, even banks and this, that, and the other thing. But yet not many people are going to read it. And if they do read it, it's in legal jargon. So you don't know what it says.
For sure.
And unless you are a lawyer or understand legal jargon, you have no idea the true thing, because legal jargon can say one thing, or you can interpret it one thing when it's actually the exact opposite way.
And even worse than that, there is no precedent. Even if you're an attorney that understands the language, there's no precedent for that. They're just writing things in there, and there's actually no laws or case examples for that in the first place. Like, are they even allowed to do that? Can they share all of your information? Do they own your information? Who owns your picture? Do you own your picture, or does that person own your picture? Who owns your voice?
Exactly. And
do you own your voice? Is there any legal precedents?
See, and those things to me I would put a bigger value and knowledge on that than knowing something like a product.
To me, they're all like, I just want to. Why do all human beings have to be deceitful?
But hold on. Can I speak at times without you interrupting me and trying to make a point?
I got all wired up.
Again, but what I'm saying is I would much rather know those things, because I don't know, because that information is up in the air. Like, again, if I look at a physical product, I can figure out the actual cost of something. And not again, to me, it doesn't matter, because it's the final cost of essentially what it's going to cost. Yeah. All of the other costs associated with it mean nothing, because it's not like I'm going to pay that price for something. I'm paying the final cost, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But the thing is, the terms and conditions and the precedents and the legal jargon, and again, who owns the rights to the picture, who owns the rights to this and that, and everything that's within the realm of Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or whatever it might be, because they're intangible. Yeah, sure, I can look at the ones and zeros in text format or picture format and say, oh, that's cool, or look at a friend's post and this, that, and the other thing. But if I wanted to make a serious contribution to something and I put it on social media and says, well, who owns the rights to that? Would it be me or them and all this other things? Well, it's all of this, all of that information is in there, but it's so impossible to understand that the average person or even an experienced person doesn't know. So to me, that value of information on the reasons why those things are not known or unknown or variable or change is much greater than what the product cost or the individual cost of something that would outweigh the final cost on the actual product.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and you're making a value decision, but to me, it comes back to, if you knew that someone only worked an hour to produce that, are you going to work 3 hours to produce that?
Here's the thing.
But that's what you're saying. I'm okay for slaving away to work 3 hours.
We're not going back. Yeah. We're not going back and forth on the merry-go-round.
That's what you're saying. But also the same thing.
Yeah, but let's not go back on the merry-go-round.
Yeah, but with Facebook, I mean, you're okay working harder for less. Again, be my guest.
No, look, you're not making. Stop making the assumptions,
that's
because
what you said.
We're all in the same boat. It's this monetary. But again, I don't want to keep going around this merry-go-round.
When you talk about
forward
Facebook,
with the conversation, or we need to change it.
So when we talk about Facebook, here's my question to you: do you think it's okay that? And I already know the answer. It's rhetorical, but Facebook, and I don't want to just single out these social media things. Anything that you do, it is correlated, it's quantitated, it's aggregated. They're collecting all of the information. They say, oh, you bought some equipment. You might want.
Here's the other thing, though, real quick, and I want you to try to or put it into it. All the information that they collect. Oh my God, fuck! Sorry, I forgot the point I was going to make. But go ahead. Sorry. No, I was going to make a point, and I was thinking about what you said, and it overlapped and deleted.
It'll come back to you. Yeah, it'll come back to you. So, we use water bottles. Oh, you order this many water bottles a week, and everything that you do, or even the searches that you do on your phone. And I'm looking up matcha tea that I bought. It's being aggregated and collected somewhere, right? Now, to try to find out who aggregated that, where is it, what's it being used for?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Now, what about the bald-faced lies that they say that you come out and say, oh, yeah, we're not recording your conversations, or the complete fabrication of truth, meaning they're absolutely 100% lying, or saying the opposite of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like they're oh no, we're not recording your conversations, but they were.
Of course. Yeah.
And they lied all over the place.
And where is the ramifications for that?
And that's the whole thing. So tie that into it with what you're saying too.
That's my whole thing. So like informed consent, right? So I personally think that if I search for something from a site that wants to sell me a product, if they said to me on an individual basis, you searched for an umbrella on our site and you bought the umbrella, is it okay if we sell to other umbrella companies your personal information that you bought the umbrella and that your address and how much so that they can also, and we want to sell your information to umbrella company A and umbrella company B. Is it okay if we sell it to umbrella company A? And I say, no, don't sell it to umbrella company A. All right, well, we want to sell it to umbrella company B. And if we do that, then, they'll give you some kind of incentive. If I had informed consent on each individual thing where I could make my decision, then I think it would be a different world. Because do you remember mailers where they used to send things in the mail to you, or like, oh, get this and get that? Well, the unsolicited idea that,
it's the same thing. It's the same thing as a billboard and all that.
For sure.
I mean, it's definitely not. The thing is, today it's directed consumerism. It's not an advertising. It's not like vast majority where I see a billboard and 100,000 people a day see that same billboard, or the mailer that comes in goes to 72,000 people to try to that's different. Or like even advertising on TV or, you know, at the beginning of YouTube videos, that's going out. They're saying, I'm buying this block. But if you go on to Facebook's advertising, you can target down to age range. You could target down to ethnicity.
Yeah. Did you ever look
area
on there
target? I mean, you can break down all of these things.
Well, it'll show you.
And that's the thing. There's so many data points. And as I was alluding to earlier with the data points that YouTube has in my analytics, like if I actually took you to my analytic page and show you a breakdown of all of these things, you would have information overload with the amount of stuff that they look at and view. And I mean, there's data points on data points on data points. Yeah. And it's just insane. And it's like, how or why is any of part of this, or not any, a majority of this even useful to certain people or certain things? But it is.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's insane.
Well, more concerning. So if you go on one of these sites and you look at what your profile is, right? And it says, okay, we know that you like Popular Science magazine, and we know that you like this, and you've ticked off these categories, and you like comedy movies. And you look at it, and we know that you're in this age range. We know how old you are. We know, what area of the country that you live in. We know how tall you are. We know, we have this whole profile on you. But then you try to say, okay, well, what are you doing with this information? Like, oh, it's a huge secret. You can never find out, where that information is being disseminated to.
Yeah,
and that's my real problem.
Here's the one thing I find that I'm vastly interested in. And it's okay. They have all of these data points on people, and they have all of this information on people, and they can correlate it with other people. And essentially, it's building a personality profile on people. Now, you can correlate the data sets between people and things. So now you have, in today's day and age, when we are out in the world and we listen to the news or whatever it is, you have people who are against each other, whether it's politically, whether it's socially, whatever it might be. There's people who are pitted against people for whatever reason it is. So there's data points on both those people. There's data points on everybody. And yet what I vision, all these data points, when you correlate everybody together, is a big giant spider web. And it would be a spider web graph of all these different points that would go around, and then this overlap area. And I want to know what the average person to average person's overlap is based on an individual. So if your personality profile is built and my personality profile is built, but we have a discrepancy because, let's say, you're for abortion and I'm against abortion. And we are at such odds at each other that if I see you, I want to cut you. And if you see me, you want to cut me. And I want to know what our correlated or personality.
What do we have in common?
Commonalities are, is it 80% common? Is it 94% common?
And what are those?
And I want to know I want to know overall. I just want to know the 2 points is overall with all of this data that's collected. And this is where you can use it for good, but you're never going to see this number because, oh my God, if this number comes out, the news is fucked. So society is fucked. Everything's fucked because it's built on this this house of cards that would crumble beneath it. Because if everybody knew that we're 94% compatible with every other person in the world, or that has data points, now you could be like, well, we're more like than we're not. So why can't we focus on the like and change society completely?
Well, I can solve this one for you, what everyone has in common. Boobs. Everyone loves boobs.
To a point,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
yes.
hilarious. I think we learned that the other day playing the Cards Against Humanity. Boobs. Everyone loves boobs.
Yeah, but
Boobs
again,
against boobs.
to me, now that I would love that's information I would love to know. So if you want to know the product of or the cost of all these different costs associated with a certain product or energy, I want to know the correlational value between personality to personality. So, like the easiest thing I can say, 6 degrees of separation. You know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Every single
You mean
person in the
Kevin,
world.
are you talking about Kevin Bacon?
No,
Oh, you're not talking about
I'm
Kevin
talking
Bacon?
about 6 degrees of separation is where every single person in the world is separated by 6 degrees of person.
Yeah,
So, like,
that's Kevin Bacon.
I don't, whatever. But yeah, so that's the whole thing. Like, so if I'm only 6 degrees of separation, or 6 people of separation from Bill Gates, or I'm only 6 degrees separation from Elon Musk or Donald Trump or Ellen DeGeneres or all of these different people, or John McElroy or Mike Tseki in Colorado Springs. You know, I don't even know if that's a real person or not, but I'm just saying, like, we're all connected in this way.
You never played Kevin Bacon?
No, I don't care.
Well, when we were
Again-
growing up, Kevin Bacon was the 6 degree separation
Yeah,
game.
I
You would
just- I don't
associate
care.
well, Kevin Bacon was in this movie, but that's what it
Yeah,
was.
but
I can't
that-
believe you never played it.
Yeah, but I don't care.
Unbelievable.
And like, I don't have interest in that. I have interest in Cards Against
I
Humanity.
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
But-
yeah, 6 degrees of
So,
separation.
but yeah, that's the thing. So all of these data sets and data points can come together and converge. And then again, it's okay. I ask this question: how alike are we all? How alike are 2 data points, which data points would be considered a personality profile, because it would then you'd. And when I say those data points, I'm talking about all of their data points. Like, that would just be this subset or the addition or the sum of all those data points of that person. So you have a personality profile and a personality profile of any 2 people in the world that is in this realm. How alike are they versus disinterests, or how many interests do they have versus disinterests, or how similar versus different? And I bet, like I said, I mean, okay, so I am a white, straight male.
Okay.
And how different am I from a trans black woman
Uh-huh.
or whatever? Like,
Right, I get it,
those
yeah.
are just a few data points. But on the overall grand scheme of things, how similar are we?
Right.
And how much interests would we have together?
Yeah.
And again, like I said, for our argument's sake, like, if you were for abortion and I was against it, and we focused only on that, but yet we were still 96% compatible as terms of the overall versus, I mean, you could even narrow it down to what's your data point set and what's my data point and how closely related are they? And it could come back different than the vast majority. But I'm saying, okay, well, what about the vast majority of people? How relatable or how alike are we all? And we're picking on these little points that differ and make all of this aggression and all of this problem and all of this war and turmoil and issues and all of that.
Well, that's a great point. So let's take a political debate, for example. I think what you just made would be a great, and follow along with me here and see what you think. If before you had your debate about what your differences were, when we see these debates, and it's always mudslinging, which I don't agree with either.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's so childish. But they smell funny. You know, don't elect them. But the funny thing to me is, what if you could actually have a professional debate about the actual issues? I don't agree with this. Here's my plan to change it. I have a plan, and here's how we're going to do it. But and someone else has a different view and a different plan. Say, oh, that'll never work. Well, when we're watching these debates, it always starts out with what the decisive issues are in their debate. But what if before they have their debate, they had to mention to each other what they do agree upon. We never see any of that. Well, again, we'll use the abortion.
No, so I mean, hold on. Not
do
to
they
cut you
do?
off,
They
but
don't do that.
Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, well, I agree with you on this point,"
Right.
but and you see the
But
problem.
what if there was like an hour beforehand
But
where
see,
they just had to like?
Here's the thing. That's not the definition of what debate
I
is.
know, of
Debate is something where you take two opposite sides of something, or take a parallel side, or something that's not the same, and you voice your opinion. And the thing is, with political debates, let's say that the Democratic Party, when they have their debates with 20 people, you only get a minute or so. You can't say what you cannot absolutely say in any way, shape, or form anything in a minute. The only way you can is if you actually sit down and talk about it. And that's like, that's like the big thing with Joe Rogan and Bernie Sanders. When Bernie Sanders was on Joe Rogan's show, he
Were you
on
for
TV,
or against him before you saw him on?
I don't.
You didn't have an opinion?
Well, see here. Okay, here's the thing. I don't
even want to say for or against, but when you think of his ideas, did you like some of his ideas? All of his ideas were. How did you feel about his ideas?
That's the thing. Everything overlaps. There's things I do agree with. There's things I don't agree with, and that's with every single person.
Watching him change your opinion once you saw him on Rogan?
No, it helped explain certain things But here's the thing, because where I'm going with it, and you kind of went off the deep rail with that. What I'm saying is the only way where you can actually dive into an issue and kind of see the different angles and different sides, because nothing is black and white. You can't attack it from one way and expect it to go the exact calculated way, because if you attack it from that way, there's an unforeseen, or there's a variable that you didn't account for, or there was an unknowable account of accountability that you just didn't know. And there's all of these different factors and it's this, like I said, it's this giant spider web. So if you take one little peg of the spider web and let it go, it affects the whole thing. It'll shake it and it'll transition it. So yeah, I mean, there's all of these issues, and it's like, okay, well, you have good knowledge on this, but I can't understand it when I'm talking, or when you're talking in a minute. You sound like a complete buffoon and yelling and screaming in this. But when you sit down and do a podcast for, what was it, an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever, and you actually are able to expand and dive in further on what you mean, then that explains a lot more. But you can also find that information if you do the research. But the thing is, nobody wants to do the research, and nobody could do the research, essentially, because nobody has the time. Everybody's trying to do this, or working, or taking care of their house or their family.
And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. This is what's sad. We're going on a different tangent about education. People don't even know how to look up things. They don't know how to find actual sources, or what is real.
That raises other points on the inaccuracies, or the things that are held over yourself without your knowledge, or without you knowing. Those are the things. So again, you earlier were looking at a system that doesn't exist.
No, and it never could.
And
I'm
it never
not
could.
illusional about.
But here's the thing: why waste even the mind space on it when
because I live in a fantasy world.
Yeah, but if you came to reality and you look, okay, well, there's these issues. Why is our education system failing us? Why is our social media system the way it is, with these terms and conditions, with this jargon that nobody knows, nobody understands, in this gray area that they're operating in? And then why are these companies just flat out lying, and then there's no liability to it?
That's what I have an issue with.
All of these things. So why not focus on the real stuff that's actually in front of you, and instead of wasting your energy on stuff that's a pipe dream, or that's not even based in reality?
It's not a pipe dream, and it is reality, to where again, individual human
You just said
I live in a fantasy world that's never going to happen. It's not going to happen because we're the little people who are living in that tiny little 2-block radius that we grew up in. This is the system that is commonly acceptable among human beings. It would take a lot of work and effort to change that system. And it's just, this is the agreed upon system, but it's not something that I don't entertain. And I'm not,
but no, I agree with you.
We're just using this as a small example.
But I agree with you that the system is flawed.
But the whole system is flawed. What
but
you're just
so
said is even
many,
more important.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's so many things
banking.
that are out there
It's even
that
worse.
should use more energy because they're current, they're happening, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying is we all have a certain amount of energy that we can expend, right?
For sure.
So why expend any energy into the realm of seemingly impossible or extreme improbable and focusing on things that are here and now that can so okay, let's pull back the veil of the banking system or pull back the veil of the education system. Why people aren't taught certain things? Why aren't we taught to balance our checkbook? Why aren't we taught things about life? Why aren't we taught about how to invest our money? Why aren't we taught about these things? Why aren't we taught, or why are we taught about certain things that we are taught? Like there's these issues and there's these things that just coalesce and just happen. But the question is why? That's where I would expend my energy. Well,
that's a good point.
On.
And I'm glad that you brought that up because this is another thing that I've been thinking about. Now, the way that our monetary system works so far is better than any other system that human beings have come up with, right? And these ideas that I have in my head where things could be 100% equal and level, that's all I ask for, is just informed decisions and having things balanced, right? That's all I'm looking for because that's how the universe works. And again, it's the merge between science and reality of human beings are just animals that are on a planet. I get that.
Even one last thing, I mean, not to really, I mean, to sidestep what we were talking about earlier with knowing the product cost and making a decision. No, I want to know what's actually in the product, down to the microscopic scale.
Well, that's the whole question.
Because I look at the nutrition facts and I look at the ingredients and it says things I have no idea what the hell they are. But if you actually look at the word and you like something, you're like, holy crap, that's what it is. And then you're like, okay, well, what's it actual effect on you?
Like sodium bicarbonate?
I mean, what is it? Dioxide, dioxide.
Well, just because
hydrogen.
a word's the point is, people listening, just because a word looks weird, it doesn't mean that that's what it is.
No, I know, but the fact of the matter
what
is
you're saying,
you don't know what it is.
Is a great point. So how
put
much
it in
is,
a layman's terms of what it is.
So in drinking water, how much is the acceptable amount of lead that you're allowed to have in drinking water? Is parts per million good for you, or should it be less than parts per billion? In cosmetic makeup, how much in certain things, how much acceptable chemicals that have been proven to have a negative impact on humans, how much of that chemical is acceptable to you?
Exactly.
I get it.
And that's the whole thing. And that's where additions and accumulations start affecting you because
who could possibly
there's I drink a lot of water. Now, you're right. What is the lead content? What is the arsenic content? What is the content in this bottle besides just water?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
And then I go to meat and I want to buy chicken and there's arsenic in chicken food and that they found allegedly. I don't know if that's true or not. But again, that's allegedly. So it's possible.
No, I'm with
now,
you.
what types of things are we putting into our bodies that are accumulating that we don't know, that we don't see? Like you see, whether this is real or not, you see people will crush up Cheerios and take a magnet and then they'll pull out the iron, which that is actually true because, but the thing is, it's like, okay, well, there's shavings in that. Well, what could that shaving actually do real damage because it's too big?
Or is it what your body needs?
Is it what the body, or is it something that's
Have you ever drinking Goldschlager?
Yeah.
So what happens to the gold when you drink the Goldschlager?
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Well, that's the other thing. Did
Yeah.
you know that when you poo, you actually poo trace amounts of heavy metals like platinum and gold?
Oh yeah, that's a new gold mine.
Yeah.
For sure.
They're,
Well,
they're taking poo-poo
Yeah.
and making money off of poo-poo.
Well, me using my little water bottle thing, it's a systematic problem that is global, and it's the same thing with the way that our food is delivered to us. What's acceptable here? What's acceptable there? We need to improve on all of these things. We need to improve on adjustable rate mortgages. How do those work? How does a mortgage-backed security work? How do commodities work? Getting the information and trying to understand that is very, very difficult. How does your credit report work? Very difficult to understand. You can get a grasp on how you can improve it, but what is the actual calculations that are used to judge you or your credit worthiness? And why is our society based on your credit worthiness? How does it actually work? Nobody knows. There's somebody who knows, but the information is very, very secret. And I think that it is very difficult as us human beings. In my view, I believe that we are an organism on the planet Earth that is in an environment that is in an ecosystem that is with billions of other organisms that we need to be in a symbiotic relationship with, if I'm using the correct term. And I think that we have to realize that we're organisms on the planet Earth that are in part of an ecosystem, and start taking care of that ecosystem so that we survive, rather than putting values on exactly what you said. Why is a person who throws a ball more valuable than a person who, does this other function? So it's exactly what you said. When I can place a value of how much this means to me, if I'm in a desert dying of thirst, of course that water is going to mean a lot to me, and I probably give up a finger to get that water.
Yeah, exactly.
I get how our society works, but I think that we're emerging as intelligent beings.
That's the whole thing. It's the desert versus here is a subjective, because it's still the same water, but the subjectiveness is, I need this water because I'm so dehydrated, and just this little bit is going to be amazing.
Trust me, those facts are not lost on me. But again, in my head, I live in Star Trek mode where we can all be doing way better. We can all be doing much better.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. It's if you go to a point where you're like, well, what about this and this? Yeah. But there's no connection or correlation. You got nothing. Yeah. It's just a pipe dream at that point. No. But if you say, oh, I have a theory of this, and this is the approach to take.
Yeah, well, I don't have a solution. But the thing is,
but going back to early, just a minute ago, like, all of these things have these veils placed over it.
Right.
And we're essentially like this little ant that doesn't see, that is looking straight ahead, doesn't understand. So all we're seeing is, okay, go to work, make some money, go home, spend our money, wake up, do the same thing over and over and over. And you go in this cycle. But yet the people or the CEOs, however they were, they started learning these rules, and they started playing this game that we all can play,
right?
But a lot of people just don't take the time to look at it because of whatever reason. We don't even know, though. But the thing, no, you can find the rules to a game that you're playing that you don't even know.
Do you know how a mortgage-backed security works?
Yeah, but
do you know how it works?
Yes, but you're getting.
I don't.
Well, to a point. But what I'm saying, you're focusing on this little, extremely small.
Well, what they are is they're all little pebbles of sand that add up to a giant problem. That's why. I mean, I can pick a million different things that are wrong.
Yeah, but I'm talking about. I'm using the overallness. Yeah, Stop focusing on something that's not. I'm not trying to make that point, because each aspect has a different way.
Sure does.
I'm saying the generalization. So we are all in this game that we're playing that we don't even know we're playing, and we don't even know the rules to the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the majority of people don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is it's a comparison, and this is just the reality of the situation. But then when you go and start doing some research and start figuring things out, or know somebody who knows about the game and knows a couple of rules and knows how to bend the rule or change the rule or tweak the rule or play the actual game within the rules, now you're able to actually play the game. And somebody, I mean, think about it. If you go up against a professional football player and you've never watched football or knew what football is in a day in your life, and somebody just gave you the quickest way to play the game, you would get decimated
for sure
entirely. And then you'd finally start figuring things out because you'd watch him do that. So that's what some people do. They figure it out a little, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
And they use it they're able to use it in their favor. So that's how you get some CEOs and you get some people. And then there's other people who actually are in charge of all of this and completely understand it and can tweak it and change it and adjust it and all of this without anybody's input or knowledge, because nobody else knows. So they're like, all right, well, this is going to work for us this way. This is going to work for that way. And so you could tweak it that way because you have that knowledge. So if you have that knowledge, you're able to do that. And that's the thing. We don't have that knowledge. And that's where we need to have that knowledge.
Right. So, well, the reason I use mortgage-backed securities as an example is because if you're a major bank in our society now and you discover that trading these mortgage-backed securities is very profitable for you, but you're in a boardroom and you're looking at numbers on a piece of paper and you're not understanding the real-world impact of how you're affecting everyday human beings, and also even if you understand the impact that you're having, you don't care as long as you have an extra $100 million to leave to your children when you die, or whatever you want. You have, all that's important to you is getting that $100 million in the bank, and you don't care how many people are suffering, homeless, or starving because of it, as long as you get that number in your bank account. That's the problem, is people they even do understand the impacts that they're having on society, but not caring. So that's where it comes down to, I guess, is if you understood how things actually worked. I don't understand how a mortgage-backed security works. I applaud you if you do.
I mean, like I said, I know the thin little bit that you know, but
yeah,
like,
do you know how they're calculated, how they're traded? I don't, and why are they so profitable? But I do know enough to know that they affect the housing market. And to me, like you grow up like, okay, I'll work and then I can buy something. And that's what we're taught. I'll work. But behind the scenes, everything is so manipulated.
But that right there is an amazing point. Why are we taught to work to buy something when instead why aren't we taught work to invest and then reinvest, and then siphon out for expenses?
Well, we should be.
And switch and transition, because if we did that way, then consumerism would be gone, and because people would only buy what they need. They wouldn't buy on impulse. They wouldn't buy on all these things. So that's where the issue lies.
Yeah, I agree there too. But also, like, the theory is that if you go and you work hard, you'll be able to have a good life. Where there's such a, and I keep going back to this, but there's such a skew on like the amount of labor.
But that's what you think, but that's not the reality. And that's
it's gotten so skewed, and it's everything. You're right. It's the trading of mortgage-backed securities. It's the stock market. It's the banking system. It's the insurance. There's such a problem. And I use this small little water example. It's something that affects us every single day that we're just complacent about. When we go to buy things, we just accepted the fact that the price that's on something, and you can do your due diligence and shop around and say, oh, okay, get a better price over here, I'll go buy that. That's just being a smart consumer. But that's
being the informed consumer. But that's the thing. That's the information that you're searching out. But here's the thing: if you're searching out information here in this realm or this aspect, you're not searching information out in this other
try to find
realm
out
or
how
this
your
other
credit report is
aspect.
calculated, and then you have to question. So nowadays, like what you said back to like the golden age, where 50 years ago you could work, a single person could provide for a family, you'd have a middle class life, and you could have a home, and everyone. We all know that the middle class is disappearing, and the gap between the most wealthiest people on the planet and the poorest people is increasing in first world countries exponentially. We all know that, and there is no such thing as the middle class life anymore. But the other thing is that I completely lost track of where I was going. Now it happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but I mean,
So that's what I was saying. So in the golden age, there wasn't things like, maxing out your credit card, buying everything on credit, and then banks leveraging all of these things in the stock market and all this stuff. Well, because it was, you go to work, you get paid relatively acceptable for the labor that you do, and you can provide for your family. But then somehow everything got so skewed to where there's all these quantum computations and in a credit report. When did the credit report affect how you obtain goods and services, and you have the
or a job?
In a job. And it used to be secret. Banks were using this credit report secretly without you even knowing. And then someone discovered that banks were using this secret formula to judge whether they were going to give you or what the interest, what they were going to charge, or if they even gave you a loan. All of a sudden they say, well, we made forward progress, and say, well, now you have to give me this information so I can see it for myself. But try to find out how that is calculated. Do you know how your credit report is calculated? I don't.
Very little.
Nobody does.
But
it's why is all this stuff a secret? And the reason it is a secret
because
is to keep us going to work.
It's the game. That's the thing. It's the game that you play, and it's this shot calling where you're pulling the strings of everything. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. That's where I'm saying, if you spend more of your energy, instead of looking at this fantasy realm of things, and you start looking at the reality of things, then you say, okay, well, there's this, or exposing this, and we can change it this way, or we can improve it this way. Right then and there, you'd be able to improve things where maybe this realm of your fantasy world would start making more sense.
Right.
Not necessarily that you're talking about how something is priced or whatnot, but talking about how it brings things back into a fair playing field or a level playing field.
Well, there's definitely a lot of ways to get involved.
People, but that's the whole thing. But it's a group of people that can get together and call all of these shots because they are the ones who have the information. They're the gatekeepers. They're the door key, and they're holding all the locks and keeping all the keys. Yep. And you just don't know, and it encompasses all of us,
but it's
and
so
we don't
wide
really know.
Too.
Yeah,
it's so wide when you think of the banking system and all of the issues with the banking system. It's such a widespread systematic problem, and it's something that we accept every day. That where would you even start to change it? Now, you remember Occupy Wall Street? What I thought was hilarious about Occupy Wall Street, I agreed with all those people. I'm like, great, we should definitely do something. But what was hilarious to me is like people gathered outside of Wall Street. Like the people were just going to come out of the buildings of Goldman Sachs and say, you know what, you got us. We're going to change.
I know, right?
Like to me, like things needed to be more democratic, where we use our democratic system to change rules. And some people did, but it was hilarious. Like, do they expect these people to come? And I agreed with them. Like, I'm glad people are angry enough to start doing something, but we need to have robust rules where they say, everything needs to be transparent. That's all I'm asking for is transparency. And so that we all know how everything works.
I mean, so you want to talk about transparency? I'll give you a real dose of transparency in a real world setting and a craziness. All right. So I do Uber and Lyft. We all know this.
Yeah.
They are, at least my experience, one of the least transparent companies out there in terms of operational in law standpoint. So they operate definitely in gray areas of the law for sure. They sometimes not even in the law. And then they are not transparent with their drivers. They're not transparent with their passengers. and then they essentially pit passengers and drivers against each other, and all of it is derived for profit and growth and market share and all of these things. And so one of the big things is I've read articles where Uber tries to keep assaults quiet. So they try to, if there's a something that was reported in the app, they send it to a third party without that person's consent at times. And this is an article I read. I could pull it up if I wanted to. And they were trying to get people to like pay off and either stay quiet or whatnot, and they could harass them. And it wasn't from what people have brought forward. Now these were alleged things, so this isn't. But it's like I said, it's in an article, and I could pull it up. But that's just like a real shady thing.
Yeah. And
then Lyft just recently made a change in the platform on the driver's side that says you're getting what you pay, and that's what you're going to see. But before you'd see what the driver paid, you'd see all the fees and everything. You would know the difference between what the driver paid or what the driver made and what the company received, what the fare was, and what the passenger paid. They eliminated that. So now you don't know. You could be taking a $10 ride and they could be spending $30, and Lyft could be collecting the rest of that. And you just don't know.
That's my whole point. And that's the same thing with the pricing of things that we buy every day. If you knew that Lyft was taking a certain amount, you get to make the judgment on whether that is acceptable to you. And it was acceptable to people because they were still employed in doing Lyft. And
well,
they
not
could
employed,
look at it.
Independent contractor.
Right. But they were still using the platform of Lyft. Right. And even though they could see, okay, I see that I'm getting paid this much and the company's paying this much, I'm making a judgment that this is acceptable to me and I'm going to keep using this platform because I can make money.
And
why
here's the other
it?
thing. Here's the other thing then too. The terms of service in there also state that the terms of service can be updated.
Oh, of course.
And if you want to continue driving, you have to accept them.
You agree to them being able to then keep that information hidden from you, part of the terms and service. And it is two different issues that coalesce. We've come down to the nitty gritty of my whole point of this whole thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, again, where I'm focusing is on the realness of situations. When you were focusing on like this different realm of things.
It's real. When you go in to buy something, it affects us every single day. And it's the exact same thing with your Lyft scenario. Why?
Those things are
the exact
different. No, but the thing is, it's different because I don't want to get into it, but you can look up the product cost and it doesn't matter really because it's the final cost where the transaction happens if you decide to do it or not. So that's why, like I said earlier, those costs are meaningless compared to the final cost, what you would agree to, and what you would agree to pay for it and what they agree to sell it for. Right. That's what I'm saying. Like that's where you need, but all of this other realm of veils and smoke screens.
Well, you just said it with Lyft. So with Lyft is a perfect example where you can see what they were paying the driver and how much the company keeps, right? Everything should be like that. Then you can make at least an informed decision. My issue is not with the product, which I agree. I'm about information. Like, just give me the facts. I can make a judgment on my own. But when things are hidden, there's a reason that they're hidden. Why did Lyft decide to change that model so that they don't show people?
They never gave the reason why.
Okay.
But essentially what it is, it's because they don't want people to realize that they're taking more and more of what the take actually is, and not giving the drivers what their true worth would be. Even
if that person said, okay, I'm getting $10 and the company is keeping $20, each individual person would get to make a judgment. Okay, well, they're going to get to a point where they say, this is unacceptable to me and I'm not going to use this platform anymore. They're taking way too much. But there's also a judgment made that, okay, I see this and this is acceptable to me. On a $10 ride, the company gets this much. That's perfectly fine with me. I'll continue to drive with Lyft. That's all I'm asking for is informed decisions. And it goes across the board to products, to banking system, to everything. I guess that's the bigger issue is I'm curious and very interested in why people cannot present the facts and have to hide things. Like, why do they and some things that are arbitrary,
or not even the fact that they have to hide things, but they just don't say it because if people found out, it would destroy their business.
Well, I get that.
I mean, but why are they doing that operation?
Exactly. If it's something that you're going to destroy your business, then that is a problem because people want products, people want services. People, I think, are generally reasonable, right? So, for the most part.
Well, I guess it depends on the issue, really.
It's really true.
All right. With that being said, I think we're going to end it here.
Okay.
Because it's late.
Yep.
And we're already going on almost 3 hours, and I wasn't expecting nor wanting to do it this long.
Me neither.
But yeah, so we're going to end it now. Do you have a quote for us, young Aaron,
yep,
sir?
Looking for it. Young Aaron, I like it. I'll try this one. Day by day we are born as night retires, no more possessing out of our former life, estranged from our course of yesterday, and beginning today, the life of that remains. Let me try that again. Day by day we are born as night retires, no more possessing aught of our former life, estranged from our course of yesterday, a beginning today, the life that remains. I think that's a Pallidus person. Anyone can look that up, but if you read it, it looks good.
Yeah,
it's just like every day.
My brain's fried. So
mine too.
That just.
I think what they're saying is every day is a new day.
Sure.
And you can reinvent yourself in the day.
Why can't you just say every day is a new day?
Because it doesn't sound fancy in Greek. I think it's Greek. Pilatus.
I don't know. Yeah, my brain's fried to even attempt to try to think that. I just like 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4. No, I'm just kidding. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Or 1 tequila, 2 tequila, 3 tequila, floor. All right.
I was Aaron.
I was Chris. Have a good night, everybody.